than I deserve. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm good. I'm loving every minute of it. So, thanks for coming on. So, I didn't really have a topic in mind to talk about, but I'm an atheist, and I've seen several of your interactions and videos with people online. So I figured, I'm pretty sure I already know where the conversation is going to go, which is talking about laws of logic. I know that's a topic that's sort of your thing, right?
Well, that's one of them. Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you give me a little bit of a background about yourself and like what denomination of Christian you are and stuff like that?
Certainly, sir.
Okay.
I am Mr. Batman. I am no denomination of Christian. There is no such thing. You see, you're either a Bible believing Christian or you are not. You see, that's the thing about Christianity. There's different flavors of Christianity out there, like Methodist, Baptist, Pentecostal, things of that nature. But unfortunately, God did not create us for disunity. He created us for unity. And that unity is structured under the Torah. The Torah is God's law. You are either a law keeper or a law breaker. I, sir, am a law keeper. I love God enough to obey his commandments. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what Jesus said. Jesus said, if you love me, then you will keep the commandments. In 1 John chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, it says, by this we know that we have come to know him, that we keep his commandments. The one who says, I've come to know him, yet does not keep his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. You see, all liars have their place in the lake of fire, and I ain't going there.
Well, isn't it true that everybody has broken God's laws? Just as soon as they're born, they're a sinner and need forgiveness. Is that fair to say?
No, sir, it's not. Because
Really?
until you know, in the book of James, again, it says, until you know what is right, yet do what is wrong, you're not a sinner. You are born with a propensity for sin. You inherit a sin nature, but you do not inherit the guilt of your parents' sin. I'm not guilty for what my father did or his grandfather did. I'm guilty for what I did. Now, you are correct, and all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Let me ask you a deep theological question. How much does the word all mean?
How much does it? Do you
Yeah.
mean what does it mean? Or
What does it
I-
mean? What would be the
uh,
volume of all?
well, I guess you could say that it's sort of the ultimate. I guess it would just be everything within a set.
Correct. Everyone has sinned, but that doesn't mean you're born with that sin. When you know it's wrong to steal a cookie from the cookie jar, yet you do it anyway, you just sinned. When you know it's wrong to tell a lie to get your butt out of trouble, yet you do it anyway, you have sinned.
So are you saying that until you know what God's laws are, that you're not you need to reach an age of accountability before it's okay to call that person a sinner because they didn't know any better?
Yes, sir. Because you'll have people who have mental deficiencies, such as uh, mental retardation. That's not a term used very much today, but that does happen where you have a person who might be a 35-year-old adult looking individual, but they have the mentality of a 2-year-old. They don't know right from wrong. And if that person goes out and kills somebody, the court system will not hold that person liable for murder. They will put them in an institution to be sure to keep everybody safe, but they will not charge them with murder. Why? Because they didn't know it was wrong. God does exactly the same thing.
Well, I think the term that's used now is developmentally disabled. Um, so that's interesting because it's actually somewhat of I would actually kind of agree with what you're saying. But I have heard other theists say that God's law is written on people's heart. even babies. I have heard some Christians on YouTube say that, and I've heard atheists bring up a topic of like, well, what about these tribes people who live on remote islands and who don't know about Christianity, or even some of them that don't have any concept of God, have no idea even what a God is. Can they know? They're adults, but can they still know about God's laws and rules?
I'm sorry, sir. Everybody knows God. Everybody. They have no choice in the matter because God has made them know it. You might want to try reading Romans chapter 1, starting around verse 18, where it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and wickedness of men." Here we go again. Revelational epistemology. How do you know what you know? God has revealed this knowledge to you, so you have no choice in the matter. And again, to all people of unrighteousness. That's everybody. So, for what can be known about God is plain to them. Who were we talking about? Everybody. For God has shown it to them. Once again, everybody. Namely, his eternal power, his divine nature. Hold on to this one. His invisible attributes have been plainly seen, clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in everything that has been made. So, sir, you mentioned that logic is one of my favorite go-tos, and it is. But, sir, you can't explain anything in the physical world without the God of the Bible. That's why I love talking about anything. Why? It's the oldest philosophical question of all time. Why is there something rather than nothing?
Well, I have read Romans 1 because I know that it talks about how, even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased or reprobate mind to do the things that aren't fitting. But
actually, it says that ought not be done. Now, once again, sir, where do you get an ought? Where do you get a not without the God of the Bible?
Do you want me to answer the question you asked a second ago, or this one?
Go ahead, sir. Answer the question.
This one, or the something for nothing one?
The something for nothing.
When you say nothing, I know some people might imagine the sort of absolute nothing where there's literally nothing. It's just a sort of black void, like at the beginning of the Bible, where there's nothing there, and then God starts creating parts of the universe. But what particle physics tells us is that if you look at the most remote empty part of space, there are tiny particles and antiparticles that pop into existence and annihilate each other, and empty space is actually sort of rolling a boiling mass of these virtual particles. And
actually, that would be wrong.
The difference between nothing and something is actually not that great, according to
so are you actually
people
saying,
like Lawrence Krauss?
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with Mr. Krauss's argument.
Sure.
Again, are you actually saying that nothing is actually something?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, wait a minute, sir. Then are you saying that quantum particles actually pop into and pop out of existence? Because that's what Krauss says.
Yes, that's what Stephen Hawking showed us.
Okay. Actually, no, sir, he didn't. He actually showed us a perception problem. You might want to Google the term observer problem. You see, I teach science. I love science, sir. And science teaches us through the second law of thermodynamics that everything dies over time. Through the first law of thermodynamics, the conservation of mass and energy, that matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form and position. Sir, you don't have things popping into and popping out of existence. What you have are things popping into and popping out of your perception. You might want to think about it that way. But it still doesn't answer the question. You are actually pointing to something when I'm saying absolute nothing. You're still pointing to some type of physicality that is changing over time. Even these quarks, even these quantum levels of our physical world decay over time. So everything in the physical world, that's called thermal equilibrium. Everything in the physical world is going from a state of order to disorder, from workable usable energy to no workable usable energy. Now, sir, where did that energy come from to begin with?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I could say that it came from somewhere, but the model of the Big Bang said that all of the energy that's currently in our universe was occupied in a locality in one singularity at the beginning of the universe, and it was
Yes, sir.
pure energy.
Unfortunately,
There was
that's a
no
problem.
matter.
That's a problem, sir. That is a problem. Again, energy, mass, and energy are basically the same thing. So,
Sure.
because energy, mass
Well,
is made up of
well,
energy. So,
matter and energy.
matter, excuse me,
Right.
matter,
Right.
mass is the measurement of the matter. Anyway,
Sure.
when we're talking about this, sir, you still have a problem. You still can't tell me where it comes from, why it functions the way it does. The fact of the matter is you're still starting with something. The oldest philosophical question is, why is there something rather than absolutely no thing? We know that everything that decays over time and will have an end, and that's everything in our physical world. Would you agree, sir, that everything in the physical world suffers from the second law of thermodynamics known as entropy?
Sure. I would agree. Well, all closed systems do,
Well, sir, would
but
you agree that the universe is a closed system?
uh, I'm gonna say yes. Although it's
There we
not
go.
a
So everything in the universe is a closed system. Everything in that universe
no.
decays over time. So now everything in the universe had a beginning. Everything that has a beginning is known as an effect. Every effect must have an adequate cause. What would be the adequate cause of everything in our universe? That would be time, space, matter, laws of logic, laws of nature, energy, laws of physics, chemistry, biology. Because what we have, sir, is we have evidence of a loving, living, logical lawgiver Elohim. This lawgiver Elohim is eternal, universal, and unchanging. Now, you have to deal with the physical world. The physical world is none of those things. It's constantly changing over time. It had a beginning and it will have an end. So, wait a minute. This is known as an effect. This universe, this effect, needs an adequate cause. What would be the adequate cause of the universe, sir?
Well, I'm going to give my answer, and then I want to ask you a question. Um, if you have to say that the Big Bang had a cause, then you could say that it was quantum fluctuations at the
I'm sorry, sir.
earliest
No,
time of the
sir. No, no, no,
universe.
no, no. No, you can't. Because you're starting with something again. Now you're into the quantum world and you say quantum fluctuations. There's no such thing.
There's
This
no such
quantum
thing as
material.
absolute nothing. There's no even in empty space, the vacuum energy is
Absolutely right.
non-zero.
You're absolutely right, sir. There's no such thing as absolutely nothing. Thank you very much. So you have something that you have to deal with. And that something is the God that even in a vacuum, you have energy particles. You have energy in there. You know why? Because we live in a digital simulation that's created by a creator and maintained by that creator. Why do you think we have laws that never change over time, such as laws of gravity, magnetism, thermodynamics? These are called cosmological constants, yet everything in the physical world changes over time. Everything dies, everything decays, everything's going from a state of order to disorder, from workable usable energy to no workable usable energy. This is called the second law of thermodynamics, or again, entropy. Now, once again, sir, here's the problem. You've got all these laws. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that again is another one of these laws that never changes over time. So you have a law that says everything in the physical world decays over time, and that law itself never changes over time. Where does that come from?
Well, hold on a second, sir, because you said you have evidence of that eternal, loving,
I'm
non-changing
pointing to it
God.
right now, sir.
What is it?
Where do these laws come from? Why do these laws not change over time? Why are they going to be here tomorrow so you and I can have this lovely conversation one more time?
Well, I would disagree that the four fundamental forces of the universe have never changed because during the
I'm
Planck
sorry,
epoch,
sir.
they were.
I'm sorry,
Hey,
sir.
can I
Hello,
finish?
hello.
I'm sorry.
No,
Can
sir,
I
you may
finish?
not. No, sir, you may not. Because you are proclaiming your religious belief system. You weren't there to observe it. You're making a claim that you can't back up with observable operational science. Do you like science, sir?
The four fundamental
Do
forces of
you
the
like
universe.
science, sir? Because
Can
if
I?
you're not
Can
going,
I
if you're going
just?
to talk about your religion, I'm not interested in talking about your religion.
You
If you
asked
want
me
to
a
talk about,
question.
yes, sir, I did, and I've already told you, sir, I'm not interested in your religious dogma.
So
I
you asked me a
don't care.
You asked me a question about that you're not interested in.
No, sir, I'm not interested in your religious dogma. Show me operational science that shows that any of these cosmological constants have ever changed over time. Show me any evidence to that effect. You don't have any, sir. No, what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, we don't know, but we think it could have. I don't give a crap what you think about, sir. I don't care about your religious dogma. I want operational, observable, testable, repeatable science. I want you to give me a scientific experiment that you can give me the parameters of the experiment. I could do it in my laboratory and come up with the same results. That's what science does.
Okay. Like I was trying to say, during the Planck epoch, all four
Have
of
a
the
nice
forces
day,
were
sir.
one
I'm leaving this
force.
conversation. I'm not interested in your religious dogma. If you wish to continue on in your religious dogma, I will leave the conversation.
Okay, well then I guess you'll have to ask me a different question because
No,
I
sir. You don't have an answer to the question.
you won't allow me to give the answer. Do you
No,
want me to
sir. There is
lie?
no answer. From your worldview, you have to appeal to a faith that cannot be backed up. Wait a minute, sir.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. What's your definition of faith?
My definition of faith, well, Mark Twain said that faith is knowing what you know, believing what you know ain't so. It's
Okay. So you're believing what you know ain't so. Well, wait a minute. If that's your faith, goodbye. I don't need to have a conversation with you because you can't know anything. Faith is
okay.
being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see. You know what?
That was kind of me a joke answer. I'll tell you it.
I'm
I would
sorry,
say
sir.
a
I'm very
strong
literal
belief.
of a person. When I'm talking
Okay.
about science and I'm talking about this particular situation, this particular subject, I'm not joking.
A
If you
strong
think this is
belief
some
in
kind of joke, then I'm not going to play this game
a
with
strong
you.
belief in God or the doctrines of religion based on a spiritual apprehension rather than proof would be my
I'm sorry,
definition.
sir. God is proof. Where do you get proof without God?
That sounds circular.
I'm
What?
sorry, sir. Where does proof come from? Would you agree that proof exists inside of time, space, and matter?
Well, I would say space-time,
Space,
but
time, and matter, sir. Space, time, and matter. Where does all proof exist?
um, well, I'm not sure if it exists like a physical object, but
Well, then how do
proof.
you know it, sir? What is your definition of knowledge?
Uh, well, my definition of knowledge would be a summation of facts and information and skills that you acquire through experience and education.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold it. Hold it right there. Experience and education. So if you were educated in the wrong way, would that make it knowledge? Because knowledge is a justified true belief. If you were educated that the sky is purple, yet actually that color is known as blue. If you were educated that 2 plus 2 equals 7, if you were educated in that particular scenario, would that make it knowledge, sir?
I would say yes, because to quote the great movie Men in Black, like
Have a nice
500
day.
years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. Wow. I almost made it 20 minutes, guys. What I mean, that guy was uh, eager to leave the conversation. I mean, I feel like it says an awful lot because I just talked about Darth. I just talked to Darth Dawkins um, recently, and yeah, Otangelo, you know what, Otangelo, I am going to. Oh, Mr. Batman just sent me a message that says you are a joke. Otangelo, I'm going to end the stream here just so I can make this. Well, no, yeah, I'll just add you because I wanted to make this as one, standalone video, but I can just edit it later. Yeah, he just sent me a message on Discord saying that I'm a joke. But to the people in chat, was I answering his questions? I mean, he did the same thing that Darth did. He would ask me a question, especially a question asking about how did you come to this conclusion, or why do you think this? And then I give the answer, and in the middle of it, he just cuts me off and says, "Actually, sir, that's wrong because it's not God." Blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, well, you can respond like that, but you asked me the question that about how I came to a conclusion. So all I can do is give you the answer of how I actually came to that conclusion. You may not like it, or you may disagree with it or think it's wrong, but I'm simply giving you the answer, which to me just shows how dishonest these people are. Hello, Otangelo. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And please do not generalize. Each one of us is different.
Oh,
so if you're talking to these people, then it gives the impression that you are generalizing and talk about all believers and creationists and proponents of intelligent design. And that's simply not true.
Well, I mentioned Darth, so I do apologize because that's what I meant when I said that. It's just I was specifically talking about Darth and Mr. Batman. So I do apologize, though, because I know that not all theists are like those two and LPP, So, but that's fair enough. So,
I think, despite that Mr. Batman left, of course, I agree with his position. I don't necessarily use the same approach as he does. I think many have still to learn to have just normal, friendly conversations, even if we disagree with each other. But it doesn't have to become a shitstorm or like becoming aggressive and name calling the other side and so forth. So that's and I told that Dart yesterday. I mean, we have to respect how others behave, interact, and have conversations, but that doesn't mean that we have to agree. And
right,
yeah. But what Mr. Batman actually said is something which I would strongly recommend you, Mr. At Atheist Junior, that you study and consider that very, very carefully, because the fact is that the four fundamental forces, they are extremely finely tuned, and if that would not be the case, then we wouldn't exist. There would be not a life-permitting universe. And you have to ask yourself, why are the forces, the interactions between the atoms, why are they having the precise strength that they require in order to have a universe which permits to make the periodic table and the over 90 different atoms which are necessary to make life? I mean, you need heavy atoms, you need metals, you need molybdenum, you need iron, and so forth. And of course, in special, you need carbon to have life. And that is not simply a given. That requires a very, very specific set and range of forces which permits these atoms actually to form and to permit the life-permitting universe. Otherwise, we would have a universe which would be just made of hydrogen or something like that, and that would be not life-permitting. So the truth is, Atheist Junior, that naturalism doesn't give you a reasonable explanation of why these forces are precisely tuned in order to permit a life-permitting universe.
Well, you're saying that these are fine-tuned to allow life, but if you look at our planet Earth, in every direction for millions of light years, there's inhospitable empty space where we would freeze to death or burn up from the sun and choke to death within less than a minute or two. Almost every other planet in our solar system is inhospitable to life, and we've not seen any other planets that seem like they are like Earth. We need very specific conditions to live. Those conditions are only found in our planet, which is also mostly water, and we're a species that cannot breathe underwater. We drown. So I'm sort of struggling as to how it's fine-tuned when we live on a dust mote within a massive universe we're surrounded by death, basically. I'm not sure that's fine-tuned.
Well, this is a very bad argument, Atheist Junior, and I will tell you why. The fact to be explained is why the universe is life permitting rather than life prohibiting at all. The question is, why is there a planet Earth which has the precise parameters and is life permitting? And we are talking here about many, many different things that have to be just right. Otherwise, there would be no life. And the odds to have a life permitting universe are 1 to 10 to the 136th power. And I don't think that neither you or I, that we can imagine what that means. But there are 1 to 10 to the 80th power of atoms in the entire universe. So there is a huge range of the different parameters that are necessary. Once you have all the conditions, you still need a planet Earth, which has the exact parameters which permit life. You have to ask yourself, why is that so? And I can give you a link, and after our conversation, you can look it up. There are many, many things which require to be fine-tuned to have a life-permitting Earth and planet Earth. And that requires an explanation. And again, using atheism, you will not find a reasonable explanation why that is so. There are other calculations which say that to find a life-permitting planet in the entire universe, and they say that is another paper which says that the odds are 1 to 10 to the 140th power. And I can quote you here. I have here a list of 18 different parameters which require just to be right. So your argument, Atheist Junior, is very, very weak, I would say.
Well, I'm not sure if I would call it weak. Can you repeat what you said, just like the last sentence?
There are, in the link which I just gave in the private chat, if you like, you can put it also in the public chat since I don't have a branch. There are 18 different parameters which are required to be just right in order for you to have a life hosting planet. And the odds to have all these things just right are astronomically high. I mean, the chances is basically zero. So if that is something which doesn't convince you that there must be an intelligence which did set up the universe and the earth and everything else in order to have life, then I think you will not be convinced by any evidence whatsoever, because this is smackdown evidence. You don't get by this evidence to natural forces as a better explanation. By no means, I would say.
Well, your claim assumes that life in its present form is just a given, but it applies not only to life, but life as we know it. And the same outcome results could be different if there could be intelligent beings in the universe that are slightly different than us. And this is sort of what evolution proposes.
Can you just put on the screen so?
Oh, sorry.
So you have here this list. Okay, and make it a little bit smaller. So we have, and what you are saying, well, the thing is, you need actually to start with the origin of the universe itself. And the cosmological constant already has to be fine-tuned in the order of 1 to 100 and the 120th power. And that again is a number far beyond what we can imagine. And the expansion rate of the universe must be exactly right. Otherwise, either the universe would expand too fast, and then we would have not a life hosting universe, it wouldn't permit it, or it would collapse and go, and there would be no universe at all. How do you explain that? I mean, cosmology and physicists have no explanation why all these parameters are just right.
Well, I feel like when you say fine tuning, like how fine tuned do you mean? Because first,
I just
like
gave you the number. I just gave you the number. It's the cosmological constant alone. The fine tuning is 1 to the 120th power. And I mean, we cannot even imagine that. Imagine all the atoms in the universe. There are 10 to the 80th power of atoms in the entire universe. Now think that you would have to pick just one, a specific one, amongst all the atoms in the entire universe, and the odds would be 1 to the 80th power. But the just right expansion rate it's even, the odds are much, much bigger than the number of atoms in the entire universe. So this is clear evidence there must be a designer which knows exactly the right expansion rate to permit the Big Bang to expand, and in order to have a universe at all, and in special a life permitting universe. And that is just one parameter. The Codata is listing 360 fine-tuned constants which have to be just right. How do you explain that?
Well, just to clarify real quick, how old do you think the universe is, Artangelo?
That's another issue. We are not talking about.
It's relevant to the question. It's a simple answer.
It doesn't. Well, okay. Let's suppose even that the universe is old, and the number which science gives is 13.7 billion years. We can work with that.
But if you don't think that the universe is that old, I don't see how you can make an argument where you're assuming that the expansion rate is what it is in the current universe, because the universe would have to be that old.
It doesn't matter. Even
yes, it does, because this is what you were doing the other day. You're doing the same thing where you're pick and choosing science, where you're trying to appeal to some part of evolution while simultaneously not saying evolution didn't happen. And I'm not going to let you get away with it, because you can't.
Atheist Junior, I am not the issue here. The issue here is if your views that natural mechanisms explain the fine-tuning of the universe, if that is a sufficient or good explanation. That's the issue here. We are not going to shift goalposts. I mean, maybe the young Earth interpretation is wrong, and I can live with that. But that doesn't lead you to naturalism.
Well, why not? And it doesn't lead you to your Christian God either.
Well, maybe. I mean, there are many Christians which hold the view that the universe is actually old, 13.7 billion years old. So maybe they are right, and I would be happy. I would be fine to live with that. But then that doesn't mean that the Christian God is refuted or falsified. It just means that the interpretation which I prefer is wrong. But that doesn't remove God, the biblical God from the picture.
Well, I have a question, sir. It's relevant to a question you asked me earlier. But you said that the rate that the universe is currently expanding, it's a certain level where if it was slower, the universe would have collapsed back in on itself, and if it was faster, then the stars would, or stars and planets would not be able to form because the particles would be too spread out from each other. Yet the cosmological constant and the Hubble constant tells us that the expansion of the universe is actually accelerating. So if it's fine-tuned, why would God make it go faster? Wouldn't he be putting us at risk for the universe not, like, why would he change the fine-tuning if it's so finely
But even
tuned?
even the expansion rate must be just right.
That's what I just said.
Again, you have still the same problem. That expansion rate which you are talking about also has to be finely tuned. Otherwise, you will not have a universe as we know it. That also demands an explanation, and that issue doesn't help you. I have another link here about the cosmological constant. If you like to put it on the screen, we can have a look on it.
Okay, I will, but I feel like you didn't answer my question. Because what I was saying is that I agree that if the expansion was slower, that the universe would be destroyed. But you're saying that it's finely tuned. But if it's finely tuned, why is the expansion rate of the universe accelerating?
Okay, we can read here about the cosmological constant. I think that will answer your question. Are you okay with that?
Well, I would kind of like you to answer it rather than reading a paper, but I mean, that's fine. Because I just hope that it's...
well, there are several parameters which have to be just right in order for that expansion actually to start. And it has to be the right expansion. And the acceleration rate also has to be finely tuned. And there are many other different parameters which are necessary. There is also the matter-antimatter a relation which has to be also finely tuned. I mean, there are many different things that require an explanation. And they have all to be just right. They have to be finely tuned. There was one particle in the matter-antimatter annihilation was left, and that is also something which permits that we have matter in the entire universe. That leftover of one particle in 10 billion is the leftover which permits to have matter in the universe. And that leftover is unexplained, and science doesn't know how to account for that leftover, because the right thing, the expected thing would be that all particles they annihilate each other. That matter, antimatter, they all should actually annihilate, and they don't. And that permits that matter is left in the universe. How do you explain that? So what I want to say is there are many different fine-tuned issues which require an explanation. And you don't have an explanation by material causes unless you want to stick to a multiverse where cosmologists simply extrapolate and say there is an ensemble of an infinite number of attempts of creating bubble universes with different parameters and constants, and most of them they don't get off the hook, but ours was the lucky one, which then permitted to have a universe which has in the end even life permitting. But you also require an explanation if that would be true, where that multiverse would come from, because that multiverse also would require a mechanism of fine-tuning.
Right, but you're saying that the universe is fine-tuned. How does that get you to the fact that the fine-tuner is your Christian God, though?
It doesn't.
So then how is the argument valid if it's so, like, if it's fine-tuned, then it has to be a fine-tuner. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's not fine-tuned. It's simply
Yes.
the result of the way the universe formed based on, the quantum fluctuations and the different the small differences on the quantum level that led to the universe forming the way it did. I don't think that it's caused by a fine tuner. And if it's not, your Christian God, then I don't see how it's a good argument.
Well, first of all, the teleological argument, most of them, I would say, exempt the Kalam.
You're roboting, sir.
Yeah, I would say that basically all teleological arguments, they do not lead you necessarily to the Christian God, but they lead to the inference that there must be a creator which created the universe and life and biodiversity and everything in it. Well, the fine-tuning is just one of many different arguments. Why? Because if you remove a fine-tuner, then you have an open question. Why is the universe finely tuned to permit intelligent observers rather than not? And I mean, chance is the worst possible explanation.
I would say that is a problem with your fine-tuning argument, because part of the reason that the odds that you presented to me are so high is because you're focusing on a universe that's fine-tuned for human life, for life that can observe people. But the universe could there could exist life in the universe that's extremely simple, like single-celled organisms. So why does it have to be life that's able to observe and think? It seems like a human-centric.
The fine-tuning, even to have single-celled organisms, also is staggering. As I said before, you need fine-tuning of the laws of physics. You need the right constants. You need the right fundamental forces. You need the right conditions at the beginning of the universe. You need the right expansion rate. The Big Bang must be just right. You need the right galaxies. You need the right sun. You need the right Earth. There are, as I showed you previously, 18 different parameters that must be just right. And that is all what you require, even if you want to have single-celled organisms on planet Earth. So there isn't changing much in that picture, actually.
Well, one thing that I feel like demonstrates how the fine-tuning argument doesn't really add up to me is the fact that there's no measurement in physics that's perfect. All of them are approximations and have margins of error, which means that the universal constants, they have some wiggle room. They're not simply they're not able to be like, it's not like you can change them at all and suddenly the universe explodes. And because inside that wiggle room is an infinite quantity of real numbers, and it's basically an infinite number within those parameters, and each of those real numbers could potentially represent constants that could make a universe like ours, or one that is fine-tuned for even more complex life.
Well, I think we have very precise measurements in regards of these numbers, and they give constantly the same results. So, I mean, if you start to doubt that science actually provides results which we can trust, then you have no tool basically anymore to know anything about the universe and the physical reality. I mean,
what about the fact that a vast majority of the universe is hostile to life?
As I told you, the question is not why the majority. I mean, let me give you an example. If you make a bulb to give you light, then it would be the same question as to ask, well, if you touch the bulb, then you will burn yourself. Well, of course, it wasn't made that in order for you to touch it, it was made to illuminate you. The same is with the sun. Of course, if we would go to the sun, to the surface of the sun, we would immediately be burned. but without the sun, there is no life on Earth. So this is a very bad argument, counter argument, I say.
Yeah, and no life when it burns out and goes cold. But go ahead, Mark. You saw I added you fast this time, right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good to see you. Tangelo, the weird thing about the fine-tuning is that you're basically saying that under any other conditions, no sentient life could have formed, right?
Well, I can give you an example here. Let me quote this. Every atom has a nucleus of protons and neutrons and a cloud of electrons swirling around it. When an atom binds with another atom to make a molecule, the charged protons and electrons interact to hold them together. The mass of a proton is nearly 2,000 times the mass of the electron, in precision 1,836 times to be precise. But if this ratio changes, let me just finish. I'm quickly finishing.
In any way, this is a red herring.
No. Let me finish. Can I finish? Can I finish, please?
You can finish, but I don't see how this has got anything to do with the question I asked.
Well, I will explain you afterwards.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, but if this ratio changed by only a small amount, the stability of many common chemicals would be compromised. In the end, this would prevent the formation of many molecules, including DNA and the building blocks of life. This is just one amongst many parameters which must be just right inside of the atom. So you have to ask yourself, why are these forces which hold the atoms together just right in order to permit a life-permitting universe and in order to permit the periodic table with heavy particles like iron and molybdenum and so forth, which all is necessary to have life.
That doesn't address my question in any way, shape, or form.
Have to go in a minute.
Yeah, sure, Paul. Go ahead. I'll jump in after you, mate.
Yeah, sorry. Artangelo, it seems that you keep asking the question why, and I don't think that's the right question. I think it should be how, because by asking the question why, you're implying that there is a reason behind something. Sometimes there isn't a reason for things happening.
Okay.
So you should never look at it as how something happens, not the reason why it happens.
Okay, you can ask how. How does that happen? You have basically two mechanisms. One is a fine tuner and the other is no fine tuner.
Yeah, but the thing is with the fine tuner argument part of it is there's no evidence for a fine tuner. You're implying that a fine tuner must be the reason. So you're giving a reason for it, but you're not giving an evidence for that fine tuner.
The fact that the universe is fine-tuned is evidence of a fine tuner.
No, that is just evidence that the universe is what we describe as fine-tuned.
It is not that we describe it. It is fine-tuned, and that demands an explanation.
No, you haven't demonstrated that it's been fine-tuned. And my original question
I'm gonna have to jump out anyway.
That is a scientific fact. That is a scientific fact. And if you question that the universe is actually fine-tuned, then I would strongly recommend, before you come actually into a conversation like this, that you educate yourself in regards of the science, in regards of this. A good book to read is Martin Rees' Just Six Numbers, or there are very good books from Paul Davies, and you can Google. I mean, this is a fact which is unquestioned by scientists. So
to jump in here, my question was, under any other of these variables, could any form of sentient life form in a different universe with different variables?
If you change one parameter,
failed to address.
If you change one parameter, then you have to change many other parameters as well, even to have a universe at all. Otherwise, it will not go even off the hook.
Doesn't answer my question.
I did answer your question.
Change. Is there any way that life could form under different parameters in a different universe?
You wouldn't have no universe at all if you would change the parameters.
How do you know that? How many universes have you studied? How many universes have
we have studied our universe, and
our
we know.
Universe, so you have no
So
way
listen,
to
Mark.
tell.
Okay.
In another, hey, I'll finish.
Okay,
now.
you are
Be quiet, I'll
disrespecting.
finish.
You are
Hold on, guys.
disrespecting me. You are not you're not permitting me to answer. You interrupt me every time.
Excuse me. You just talked over the top of me,
guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you would like to continue our one-to-one conversation, just shot me an email, and I am fine to continue our conversation. But I don't like Mark Reid is behaving. He's interrupting me. He's disrespectful, and I'm not in with that.
I went quiet while you talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, and then when I try to speak, you jump in and then tell me that I'm interrupting you. That is rich, Otangelo. You really should look at your own behavior, mate, because that's not cool, man. Absolutely not cool.
I have a question for Otangelo, and then Otangelo, it seems to me like you think that the fine-tuning is a scientific fact, and you're appealing to the scientific consensus, but why is it that you challenge the scientific consensus on evolution then?
Because I think that well, that's another topic. Why would you like to change now to another topic?
My topic is the scientific consensus, which you just appealed to.
I mean, to give you a consistent answer on that, we will change the topic. Would you like that? Would you
we don't have to talk about evolution. That's not what I was trying to do. I was simply asking something about the argument you made, where you said it's a scientific fact, and I think you implied that a lot of scientists believe this, although I don't agree that the fine-tuning is, but I don't know.
In order to give you a consistent answer to that question, Atheist Junior, I would require some time. If you would like to change the topic, we can do that, and I will be perfectly fine to back up why consensus is not sound.
Well, the consensus about fine-tuning is that if the variables were different, life as we know it would not exist, and the universe as we know it would not exist. There is no consensus that no universe would exist and some other life may exist, because nobody has another universe to study. They can't study another universe because we don't have one. Also, it may be the case, but you're correct. The universe as we know it may not exist, but that doesn't mean that if the variables were different, that no universe exists. And that's what I want you to demonstrate.
I'm just going to add something to that, and then I'll give you all the time you need, Otangelo, sure. I promise. That there may be a majority of scientists who say that the parameters of our universe are fine-tuned, but there is not a majority who think that God exists. So again, that's the disconnect between fine-tuning and the fine-tuner. So, okay,
Well, there is always a philosophical circle around science. And of course, the quest about God's existence, if God exists or not, is a philosophical and theological issue. We cannot prove God's existence with science. We cannot disprove that God does not, either that God exists or does not exist. So your question is actually irrelevant to the issue of fine-tuning. The question is if fine-tuning points to a creator and a designer or not, and a fine-tuner or not. That is the relevant question. And I would strongly say yes, it is very strong evidence that there must be a fine-tuner, because otherwise you would have to stick, as many do, to a multiverse, but that also requires an explanation. It also requires fine-tuning, and the multiverse would actually also require a beginning, and then you would have to ask, what was the cause of that multiverse? So it doesn't remove your problem.
What was the cause of God?
God is eternal. He has no cause.
The multiverse is eternal. It has no cause. Right back
at you, buddy. It cannot be. As soon as a universe or a multiverse are in time and change.
How do you know?
Please? Can I finish, please? You are interrupting me again. Okay.
Sorry.
How do I know? I can explain you. There are two principal reasons why the universe cannot be eternal. I can maybe use the...
No, not universe, multiverse or cosmos.
Or it doesn't matter if it is the multiverse or the universe. The problem is the cosmos. The problem is the same. And I explain you why it cannot be eternal. As soon as the universe or the multiverse are in time and changing,
Are they in time?
Yes, of course. If you posit the physical universe that it must be changing, and then it is in time.
How do you know? How many cosmoses have you studied?
Well, it doesn't matter. The thing is that if you posit a cosmos or a physical universe, then you posit. Well, so what do you mean by cosmos?
Well, our local universe has local time, okay, and that's our understanding of time, is a local universe, right, with a local space-time, right? That's what we know to be time. A cosmos is whatever is outside of the universe, or what the universe is in. You know, the next level up from the universe. It may have time, as you're saying, but I'm not asserting that's the case. It may actually be an eternal thing.
Okay, my answer to that, Mark, is what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. If you do not have any evidence whatsoever for what you're positing, then right. I don't have to refute anything because you have no evidence.
I'm not asserting anything. I'm saying, you're saying it cannot be a God must be, because it cannot be a cosmos that is eternal. The cosmos cannot be eternal. You're the one making the claim, Otangelo. You've got to show it cannot be eternal, because that's your claim. I'm not claiming that. I'm saying, hey, it's possible. I'm not asserting that it is. You're claiming that it is not. You have the burden of proof to show that it is not.
Well, first of all, I asked you, is the cosmos which you're positing, is it physical? Is it in time or not?
No, you said, how could it be eternal, is what you asked. You've got to pay attention.
You are not answering my question.
Yes, and I said,
you are positing a cosmos. And I want to know what that cosmos
Otangelo, let me finish. I said it could be that it is eternal because the really?
He's gone. Well, his browser may have crashed, but I think he just got ass hurt.
That was hard to listen to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How's it going, Chris?
Wow.
Hello, Chris.
Long time no see.
I was trying to be respectful. I was just.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I just wanted to say, guys, Chris is the one who helped me think of the name of my YouTube channel. Just saying.
Hey guys.
Hello.
So
hope you're all having a good day. My microphone is a little weak right now, but.
Yeah, I got a Blue Yeti for my birthday because I'm a serious YouTuber now.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm at work and I'm just using my Bluetooth headset.
Does it sound good? I mean, you sound okay.
Yeah, yours sounds great. Mine probably sounds like I'm underwater, but yours sounds great.
Yeah, because I was using I have these Sony Bluetooth wireless headphones that they're great headphones, and I'm using them right now. But for a microphone, it was not good, and I ordered I ordered the mic from Amazon, and it got here literally just in time for my debate with Kent Hovind.
Nice. Yeah, I still got to watch the rest of that, kind of touch up on it. Like I said, I was just listening to it at work. But yeah, I'm definitely going to listen to that again.
Yeah.
But, I'm still going to be on the call, but I got to go grab some tacos real quick. I'll be right back. I'm going to mute my mic.
Oh, that's what I did this morning.
Nice.
Otangelo, sure, we can. Yeah, we can continue. Although, to be honest, it's, I'd probably rather talk about something else, but I'm always willing to talk to you because it's always interesting. Otangelo, or Mark, were you watching, did you see I was on Oz's channel yesterday? I was on the Atheist Roundtable.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it good?
Oh yeah, you may need to turn your volume down a little bit. I'm getting an echo.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's just barely. Yeah, yesterday I was on Amy's show, and then the day before was my first time being on the Atheist Roundtable, and it was a lot of fun. Otangelo was there. There was drama at the end. Tom Rabbit showed up.
Oh no!
I'm pretty sure somebody died. It was hectic. Nobody died, figuratively speaking, but it was a lot of fun because Hey, in the chat, DeFreak, you can hop on if you want. Because I'm not going to respond to chat messages, dude. I'm the host of the stream, so.
Oh, please bring him on. I've been talking to him in the chat. Please bring him on.
Only if he gets in the. Only if he chooses to get on can I add him. I can't just add him from the chat. But he's a troll. He's a troll anyway. He's a troll anyway. Yeah, he's like thinks he comes on streams and talks about how he's a Christian and a Muslim at the same time. It's just stupid.
That's not a thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been doing lots of live streams. Like I was on the Atheist Roundtable where they have people call in, and then yesterday we were doing Amy Newman's Bible study, Skeptic Bible study, which was fun because we were talking about transgender issues. I guess that's why Otangelo didn't show up, because he misgenders Amy when Darth Dawkins makes him.
Bad.
Well, he only did it because Darth Dawkins bullied him into doing it. But I have a video of me talking to Darth Dawkins that is going to go up very, very soon. It's on my Patreon right now, as you know, a early video for my patrons. But I'm editing the video because right now it's just the audio that I have, because Tom Rabbit graciously sent it to me. So thank you, Tom. But I have to edit the video because my audio is it's not that my audio is quiet. It's just that it's quiet enough to where Darth is so loud that when he interrupts me, he just steamrolls over me because he has his gain turned way up on his microphone, so he's loud like this.
I'm not sure that's entirely his microphone, but yeah.
Well, the volume of his voice on Discord, you can turn your volume up for your voice to be higher, and so it can be hard to understand what I'm saying sometimes because his audio just goes right over mine. But so I was going to add some captions to make sure people can hear what I'm saying in certain parts, and then there's also parts where I'm going to add notes saying, like, you know, this is why I think Darth's argument is bullshit right here. And
I'll be right back.
Okay, did you get your tacos? Oh, I guess he's going to jump back in. Yeah, so I just see that Otangelo is doing the same thing that I called him out for the other day. He is picking and choosing what parts of science that he wants to use to back up his argument, while he, you know, like trying to appeal to a universe with a expansion rate and an age that he does not even believe in, or trying to appeal to something de-evolving when he is a creationist, seems super dishonest to me. Like, why not just accept science whole cloth rather than picking and choosing? Because to me, it seems like you're doing exactly what Kent Hovind is doing, where you act like you accept science, but as soon as science conflicts with your religion, you drop that part of it. So it's just a la carte, which it makes sense for Christians because Christians do that with their own religion. You know, like they work on the Sabbath, you know, but they, you know, they don't want to stone gay people, and, you know, they don't stone a rape victim if she, you know, was raped in town, but nobody heard her cries, so she must be lying, you know, stuff like that. So it makes, I mean, you can't really say that you're happy to address things when you ducked out of the room with Tangelo. So anyway,
well, the thing is, do you remember that famous debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye?
Yeah, of course.
And you know, you get a lot of very similar, and not all theists do this, but a lot of them are the same as what Ken Ham said at the end, and that's like, between evidence and the Bible, he will believe the Bible, and that's all he'll believe. There is no evidence you can show him to change his mind. It doesn't, you know, even the most compelling evidence, and you know, even if it's absolutely set in stone, it's still going to, he's going to believe scripture over science. So
Right.
I think that that science is fine with theists, or some theists. I shouldn't generalize all theists, but science is fine with some theists when it backs up what scripture says. And as soon as it goes against scripture, science isn't fine anymore. That's where it's wrong, kind of thing, because scripture takes a higher priority than science.
Right.
So I think that's got a lot to do with it, that in between science and scripture wins. As long as scripture follows science, or science follows scripture rather, it's fine.
Right.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah, that debate was it had some good parts in it, but I know a lot of people say that the debate wasn't very productive. But to me, just that question alone made it worth it, because that exposed Ken Ham completely. But of course, it doesn't surprise me, because if you go on Answers in Genesis, their website, and you click on their statement of faith, they say right there that any account, anything in science or geology or cosmology that conflicts with the scriptural record, the scripture takes priority, which is just you're assuming that before you even heard the evidence from science that it's not going to be right, because that's super dishonest. Obviously.
Well, it's super close-minded. Let's face it. I mean,
at least they're honest about it, I guess. In a way, it's honest.
They're honestly close-minded.
Yeah. They're consistently inconsistent. Oh, I muted DeFreak, so unfortunately he's in the back room, but I guess I can't add him for another 5 minutes because he was spamming the chat.
Yeah, no, he I don't know. I mean, the freak, he's admitted to being a troll before, and that he trolls for his religion, kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
he's going to be on extremely thin ice.
Well, I mean, either he's said some weird stuff to me, and I don't know. He's just either he's trolling, he's just joking. I don't know. I don't even know anymore, because he did go on Amy's channel at one point, I think, and had a conversation with Oz from memory, I think.
Yeah, I remember science changes and can be wrong. Yes, science they don't say that they have an answer that is an absolute fact, that it's absolutely correct. They simply say that they have the current most accurate, best explanation. Because in science, what you do in the scientific method is you have observations about the natural world. And I appreciate Otangelo saying that science can't study God because he's not in the natural world, which I don't expect a theist to say that, which is one of the reasons I like Otangelo, is because he says things that most theists wouldn't say. But you make observations, and then you take that data and you do experiments on it and make hypotheses, and then you either you falsify them, or you add that data and it becomes a fact, and then you take a body of facts and that makes up a scientific theory. But you never get to the end in science. So being wrong in science is part of it. It's not a negative thing. It's just, okay, we got this wrong. Like, it's like the Newton's theory of gravity. The theory of gravity is wrong. General relativity superseded it and is more correct. But even general relativity has issues, because in general relativity, it tells us that things will become infinite, like singularities. And so we know that maybe not singularities, but in the math, there are infinities, which is never a good sign if the math of your theory has infinities in it. So we know that it's not until a unified theory of everything, where we can combine that with quantum mechanics, which again is more accurate than general relativity, that that will be but it doesn't mean general relativity was wrong. Now, if you want to say that science was wrong saying that like the earth was flat, or like phlogiston was a thing, or the ether existed. Like, I guess, I mean, science had some growing pains, but really, if you look at how fast science has become the best method for understanding our natural world compared to how long humans have been even around or reading and writing, it's incredible. So I don't really care if it's been wrong. It's I love it anyway.
And the results that it produces are far beyond anything any other institution has ever produced. I mean, you look at what actual results religion has produced. And don't get me wrong, people in religion have done good things, but when you compare it against the achievements of science, like what has it actually produced? We're on the internet because of science. We've got computers because of science, cars, airplanes. We can actually fly because of, all of these things produced by science. We use it because we know it works. It's the best thing to determine what is possible in our world and what is not, because it gets the results. You compare that with religion, and there hasn't been has there ever been a significant breakthrough in religion in thousands and thousands of years, from basic animism to polytheism to the current monotheism. There hasn't been any kind of production of anything,
Well, and another thing is that science is self-correcting. So science can be wrong about something and fix it, but with religion is wrong and just stays wrong, because you can't change it, because it's dogmatic. It's a holy text given by a prophet who said that it was inspired by God. So, you can't change it. You can't update it. That's why you have so much stuff in the Bible that is morally bankrupt. And that's another reason why Christians, not talking, I am generalizing in a way, just talking about the United States, but I hate to generalize, but it is true. Christians have taken so long to catch up on civil rights, LGBT rights, women's rights especially, and you name it. And part of that is because religion is so set in its ways, whereas science, in a way, I would say science has contributed greatly to the advancement of those rights. Because you create the internet and you put the tools of information in more people's hands, you make people more educated. It will always result in less bigotry, in my opinion.
Because I think that realizing the genetic differences between people is just so tiny contributed to that. That at one point in the past, and this may not be religion's fault, but people of sort of Victorian age thought that Australian Aboriginals and African black people were another species. They were a subspecies of human kind of thing, and through genetic science and learning, we find out that that's not actually the case, and there's actually more variation between people than there is between different races. More variation between people in a race than between them. So we know that everybody is human, and we all have this relationship with one another. And I think that did a huge amount to stop the bigotry against what was seen incorrectly and immorally as the lesser races kind of thing. We know that's just not true. It's just not true.
Right. And the interesting thing is, I hope that Otangelo doesn't think this, but I've certainly seen just every theist, maybe not every, but so many of them, especially like Kent Hovind, saying that Darwin was a racist, when the truth is that Charles Darwin was actually quite progressive for his time.
Yes,
because
he was an abolitionist.
It was, I know I talk about the scientific consensus, but seriously, the scientific consensus in his day was that Black people were of a different race, but Charles Darwin did not believe that.
He said some things that today we would have seen questionable. There's no doubt about that. But he was a product of his time. And for his time, I mean, he was an abolitionist. He believed in the abolition of slavery. he
That's
was
true.
very progressive for his time.
His
by
family.
today's standards. Yeah, his
family
entire
would have
family. Yeah,
issues.
yeah.
Yeah, and he and people have said that Darwin, that he had kids, that he married his cousin because he wanted to produce a more superior race, thinking that that would happen. But Darwin knew that it's diversity that causes a more healthy population.
That's right.
When you have inbreeding, that causes deformities. And again, the reason that Darwin married his cousin is because that was just normal at the time. It's certainly.
And plus, Darwin had no idea what DNA was and didn't know
Right.
how it interacted to cause these sort of, these very, very detrimental, like the royal family had hemophilia coursing through it because of
Habsburgs.
Right, because of this inbreeding program that they'd endeavored to find themselves on. But that was very vaguely understood, and we got to remember that Darwin didn't have the modern understanding that we do now. We know why these detrimental genetic diseases come up as a result of inbreeding, but Darwin had no idea of what he knew what was happening, but he didn't know what the mechanism for these changes were.
Right.
I think that we forget that Darwin had no idea about DNA or codons or anything like that. He just knew what was happening and what was causing it. The selective or the breeding between animals would reinforce traits, but he didn't know why it happened. And that was part of his brilliance, that he had no idea what the mechanism was, but still could figure out what was going on.
Right. It's interesting to think about what could Darwin have accomplished if he knew about genetics. But I think in a way he did have some rudimentary idea of a simple type of genetics. Like if you've seen Game of Thrones, in the first season, have you seen that show?
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm just trying to remember back to the first season.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say when Ned Stark, he starts to suspect that the king's children are not his because of the hair color.
Right. Yeah.
And they didn't know about genetics, but there are things like that can sort of present themselves as obvious without knowing the specifics of Mendelian genetics. But he didn't know about genetics or DNA. And again, like creationists, they criticize Darwin like he didn't know things, but we have 150 years or more of scientific knowledge.
Hi, DeFreak, how you doing?
I added him, but I'm not sure. And call me emo. You can hop on if you want. I know.
Have you come here to say something to Freak? Have you come to?
He's not muted.
The block wouldn't have affected him on here, would it? Like it wouldn't.
Well,
I'm unfamiliar with StreamYard, so
it's over. It was only 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh.
But yeah, in the private chat,
you can angrily type stuff in if you want, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to him because every single time I do, he's always sort of saying that he can convert me and that I've lost and that I've I know this and I know that, and it's just interesting to hear somebody tell you what you know, and we get a lot of that. And yeah, the Freak's one of the ones that are sort of like, well, you know this and you know that, and I want to know how he knows what I know. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Nobody's a mind reader. Nobody has ESP. James Randi offered a $1 million check to. Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. Okay.
Hello.
Hey there, Mark. How's it going?
Good.
You look different than I expected.
I get that a lot, actually. I do get that a lot.
Hey, freak.
A break. Yeah, no, I've just come on. I've just taken a break. I'm actually coding an operating system for one of my units, so I'm taking a break at the moment, which is probably why. I mean, I apologize to Otangelo if you found me aggressive. I didn't think. I didn't think I was being aggressive. I thought I was just more being my usual forthright self. But I guess I could come off of that. So I apologize to Otangelo if he took it that way. But anyway, so
hey,
yeah,
that's better than Darth Dawkins could do.
I'm sorry.
That's better than Dawkins could do.
Yeah, Darth.
Darth Dawkins? That's
Yeah,
better than Darth Dawkins.
I imagine he's the type that wouldn't apologize for anything ever.
Oh, of course not.
Well, I mean,
I admire that.
Look, to be honest with you, I don't follow Darth Dawkins that much, and I don't like seeing his stuff. It's really, I find him really rude and obnoxious, and just, yeah, I really think that he has something seriously wrong with the man, and I don't follow him, don't watch him, don't try to. I know that who is it? Tom Rabbit does a channel.
Tom Rabbit. Yep.
Yeah, I watched. Amy asked me to watch the interaction she had with Darth Dawkins, and
there are some short videos on there. My video it's almost an hour. I talked to him for an hour, bro.
Oh God, I feel so sorry for him. It really makes me sad because I think that he is a very smart guy, and if
you should feel sorry for me.
Well, I do too. Yeah, but I mean, but he's like, he's so mean, and I can't even imagine what his life is like. Anyway, I really don't want to discuss him because I think he receives too much.
And I'm not gonna go there either because Darth, I'll certainly criticize him, but I know that some people, because people really don't like him, and I get that, but people start to talk about his personal life and his family and stuff.
They've got no right to.
Although it simply doesn't matter how much you dislike. And maybe I'm a hypocrite for this because I have made videos about Kent Hovind and his wife leaving Dinosaur Adventureland. But I'm talking about people bringing up his Darth Dawkins like son and saying like your son doesn't get along with you. Like
that's not okay.
I said in my video about Kent Hovind's wife that the only information I put on there was stuff that's public on social media, and I wasn't even saying that she had left. It was just me. Really, it was mostly Kent Hovind's own video. So all I showed was just one comment of hers that was on YouTube, and then clips from Kent Hovind's video. So there's a piece of shit. Yeah. What, Kent?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That dude is not a good person at all.
Well, yeah, and Mary Toko.
Mary Toko was pretty bad too.
Yeah, I was going to respond to one of her videos, but then Mr. Batman came online and I was like, oh shit. Or he messaged me and said that, he would talk to me, which he did for like 20 minutes. And he was so eager to leave the conversation. Like, it's like
Mr. Batman.
Yeah, I talked to him at the beginning of this stream.
From what I've seen in Mr. Batman, he's usually not eager to leave. He's usually eager to get stuck in, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I know. Like
weird.
He 4 times he was like, "Good day, sir. Burpenter Parish. I'm leaving," and then he just wouldn't leave. And then he got mad at me because he asked me like. What did he ask me at the end? He was like, "Sir, do you if someone has knowledge that's wrong, is that still knowledge?" And I said, "Well, to quote the great movie Men in Black," and then he left. But what I was going to say is that there was a quote in that movie from Tommy Lee Jones, who, by the way, is from my hometown of San Antonio, Texas, that
Texas.
A long time ago, everybody knew that the Earth was flat. Everybody knew that, and it's like, you could know something like in the, like, where you're like, have you ever argued about something like vehemently and then you later found out you were wrong? But in the moment you were so convinced, like you could just like smack the other person, and then like you look it up on Google later and you're like, oh shit, you know, like but you knew that in that moment. And
yeah, but what you're talking about is a knowledge claim. You're claiming to know something. Like, I think that knowledge and belief, one's just a more certain, one's just a higher level of certainty than the
right.
other.
Well, yeah, I believe I believe that belief is a subset of knowledge.
Well, yeah, you've got to believe something if you know it. Absolutely. Because I mean, if you're saying, "Oh, I know this," well, obviously you believe it. There's no category where you know something but you don't believe it. Like,
yeah, like
doesn't make
that's such a loaded word around like those two. But did you have an opinion, duh freak?
Yeah, am I still in here? I was timing out there for a minute, but as far as Octavio goes, I mean, to me, he made a pretty specific and a pretty on point, Tangelo, excuse me, argument. But I just want to criticize like the whole community, the whole community of atheists. If I can, it seems like you guys always just resort to two things, and that is, show me the evidence. Where it's like, if you're breathing and thinking and speaking and seeing, that's evidence enough in reality. But
evidence of what?
God.
Evidence of intelligent, whatever you want to call it. We don't have to go with the Christian God. I know we're not ready to make that leap yet, but
let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah.
What's the second thing?
And the other thing is the what was it? We always end up back at square one after you even when something is presented to you as evidence that could actually, be valid, it's just dismissed outright. And it's like you're just refusing to listen to any truth whatsoever. And I'm just wondering if you're trying to build a treehouse club or something instead of seeking truth.
Well, I don't know if that's true because he presented his argument and we had a discussion back and forth about it. I didn't simply dismiss it outright, like, no, that's just not true, and not even give any reasons why I think that it's not true. And Tangelo has told me things before where I've said, well, I agree with you on this part, but I don't know about this. Like, I even said when we were talking to him that I agreed that if the expansion rate of the universe was slower, that the universe could collapse in on itself. So I agreed with him on that part. But of course, I don't think I agree with what you're saying. And as for the first part, well, again, I'm going to keep saying this, that even if it is evidence for intelligent designer, if you're a Christian, you still have to make that gap where it's your God. So not good enough. Try again.
Well, not only that, DeFreak, with the first point, when you say like seeing as evidence of God, and okay, even if you have a designer, you've got to make it a God, because you're setting up a dichotomy here between, well, it's either natural or it's God, and that doesn't follow, because it's either natural or not natural. That's the dichotomy. So if it's not natural, it can still be aliens, it can still be magic, it can still be a number of other things. And just even if you did prove it was not natural, it does not prove God. You have to have evidence for God, not against something else. So when you guys are demonstrating evidence, you've got to be for the thing you're proposing, because just against something else doesn't prove the thing you're proposing. And that's to number one. Number two, you're saying, oh, you don't recognize it as truth whatsoever. Now, I don't know what's wrong, the disconnect in between here, because you're coming in with, this is truth. This is absolute truth. And we don't believe that. And instead of saying, okay, you don't believe it's the truth, your attitude is, you should know this is the truth. And I don't know that at all. So this expectation that we accept what you say as the truth, I'm sorry, but that expectation is unrealistic.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, sure. Go, Chris.
Freak, why do you think the Bible is true? Why do you think everything in the Bible is true?
Well, I never even owned a Bible until I saw God myself. So I believe it's true because he revealed himself to me, and then I knew everything that was learned or whatever was true. At that point, I knew the Bible was true.
Okay. Do you think
so?
that could have been a dream?
I didn't use the Bible to find God. God found me, and then I found the Bible.
Do you think that could have been a dream?
No.
Why not?
Because when you're in the presence of God, you feel the love of God, and it's undeniable, it's unmistakable, it's more, you're more aware or alive than you are even right now talking with me over the internet. It's a whole nother level of awareness.
I've had a similar experience on DMT.
Can you give me
I understand that.
Did
you feel the love of God?
Actually, it was pretty terrifying, but go ahead. Mark?
Difference.
Can you give us a rundown of the circumstances of what it looked like, smelt like? What exactly was the circumstance? So, like, you must have a story behind, this vision of God.
Good point.
Sure. I was at the I don't want to disclose too much, but we have some real estate. We have some commercial real estate, and we were at the place. And my mom had told me something that my sister and her daughters were getting into some trouble, this or that. So I just prayed, because I was trying to find him. I was seeking him with all my heart. And so I just made a simple prayer, like, Lord, help my sister and her daughters, blah, 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 whatever. And next thing I know, sort of like John in Revelation, in the spirit realm, I was just there before him. He just brought me right to him.
So, the freak, can I ask you that if you heard somebody gave the exact same story that you just told us, but instead of like talking about John, they gave you a story from the Quran and told you that they saw Allah, would you believe them? And they said that's why they were a Muslim. Would you believe them?
Yes, if they swore on the God of Abraham, I would believe them. Would you
believe them that Allah exists?
Of course I would. Because I already know that, though.
Okay, I already know that, though. You're a Christian and a Muslim?
Well, Muhammad was a born again Christian.
Are you a Christian and a Muslim? Hold on, guys. Are you a Christian and a Muslim?
It's all the same God. It's the God of Abraham. No, Ishmael was the father of the.
Is Jesus God, or was he simply one prophet of God and Muhammad was the final prophet? Was Jesus God?
Yeah, Jesus is God.
But you're a Muslim also.
That doesn't.
Right.
That's conflicting.
Oops, he slipped on a banana peel.
Those are conflicting.
I booted him.
He rage quit because
I booted him. That's
Why'd you boot him?
Because he's a troll.
Is he just trolling, or like is he confused?
He's not confused, guys. You cannot say, if I ask somebody who's religious, are you a Christian and a Muslim at the same time? And they have to think about it. Like,
so
come on.
The God Allah is the same original God of Yahweh. It is
but come on.
Depending on the Christian, yeah, I see what you're saying. That if you're a Christian, really Jesus is your God, not Allah.
Right. Exactly.
Disavow Allah as a false
God.
Sorry,
you cannot say that Jesus is God and be a Muslim. You can't say that. They're fundamentally up. I know they're both Abrahamic religion.
I know what you're saying, but you're applying a broad Christian brush to what an individual may believe. Like, he might actually think that Allah is Jesus that has
the Christian God.
Yeah, or you can't decide what somebody believes isn't rational. I mean, look at the Mormons, for instance. They think that Jesus Christ is in America.
I'll give him another chance then.
Yeah, I really want to probe his mind and kind of see, why he thinks what he thinks. And
like a Father God, the Most High Father God would be the same as Allah, because you're talking about the word for God in Arabic is Allah.
No, I
think
the question was actually brilliant. I think it was actually brilliant. But instead
I can prove that too, by the way. I can prove that.
Just a second, the freak. Could I just finish? So instead of saying if it was a Muslim, like that, saying, okay, just say it's a Hindu, and they say that they had a vision of Brahma, would you believe them?
I'd have to take them at their word, but I wouldn't believe that they saw. I wouldn't believe that they saw the Most High God unless they believed in Jesus Christ.
So do you think other gods exist?
I believe Jesus Christ can do whatever he wants.
But do other gods exist, like Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva? And
they very may well, because it does reference other gods in Scripture, But they're irrelevant to me. They're irrelevant to me because I go right to Him.
Relevant to you?
Because they have no authority over me. They have no bearing on my destiny.
How do you know? How do
I know? Because I was standing before the Father. I was standing before Him.
Okay, who was God's final prophet on earth?
He's the living God. There is no final prophet on earth. The Muslims want to say that about Muhammad, but
what?
Like now I can't tell if you're being serious or if you're trolling.
I'm dead serious.
Okay.
Were there prophets?
Then you're not a Christian. I mean,
there are prophets now. If you go to some of these old Pentecostal, born again Christian churches where you find that old grandmother Christian that's been a prayer warrior for 30 years and she can get people healed with one prayer. I mean, those are prophets.
Okay, let me okay, hold on, guys. Let me rephrase my question. Does the Scripture say that who was the final prophet according to the Scripture?
I can't find where there was any saying that this is the final prophet. I haven't come across that. I haven't found that myself. That was put in there by someone else, in my opinion.
What? Oh, what do you
because
mean?
If you read Joel 2, he says in the last days he's going to pour out his Spirit upon all flesh. So how could and your sons and your daughters shall dream dreams and prophesy? So how could there be a final prophet if it was Muhammad? If Joel 2 is not, if Joel 2 is wrong. It couldn't be that way.
Did you say Job?
Joel. Like Joel? Billy Joel.
Is there a book of the Bible called the Book of Joel?
Right.
No.
Okay, link me to a site that has that scripture, that passage, please. Paste the chat. Paste it in the chat.
1 second.
It's right before Amos.
Okay.
I went to seminary, and that's what actually got me out of religion.
Okay, well, I mean, fair enough. I'm just asking. Well,
hold on. Let me promise.
Because in the Quran, it says that Muhammad they say that he was the final prophet on earth, meaning that he was the last person to directly get wisdom from God, or maybe more specifically the angel Gabriel, because the angel would come to him and tell him what to tell his people, and then they would write that down, and that became the hadiths and the surah in the Quran. So that's what a prophet is. And so in the Quran it says that Muhammad was the last person for that to happen to, and that Jesus came before him. So
it says that in the Hadith or in the Quran?
Well, it says it in the Quran. The Hadith is kind of more like supplemental material.
I don't. You're gonna have to show me that verse, because I never found that, and I think to me, Islam was hijacked as soon as Muhammad died. Basically, Islam was hijacked by politics, in my opinion. I'm trying to get to Joel.
What makes you think that?
Because there's just enough verse modification in the Quran to keep mankind deceived, to keep the people separated and deceived. And it's, you know, you think there's racism now or whatever. Think about how the Arabs and the Persians felt about each other, and even now, they were all vying for power after Muhammad died.
Okay, guys. Okay, so I'm quoting Allah 33:40. Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is not the father of any one of your men, but he is the messenger of Allah and seal, i.e. the last of the prophets, and ever is Allah of all things knowing.
Okay, maybe he meant for the Arabs or something. Because in Genesis 16ish, God made a promise to Hagar and Ishmael, and so Muhammad may be the fulfillment of that receiving of the word of the children of Abraham.
I think what Atheist Junior is getting at, and correct me if I do sort of misrepresent you, AJ, I think what he's getting at is you have all these different prophets who are all saying contradictory things, and you seem to believe all of them. And that seems weird to me because, you know, with what Muhammad is saying, that he's the last prophet, you don't believe him with his prophecy. And there are other prophets that all contradict one another. How can you believe all of them at once that what they saw was the truth?
Well, because first of all, I don't believe that they all contradict each other. I mean, if there's any contradiction, they're very minor, and they can be easily explained in context, because he's the living God. If he's giving you a word right now, like you're gonna go fight and you're gonna go kill everybody right now in that camp tomorrow, that's a right now word.
Just like the Quran says that there is only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, and that is Allah, right? And that's what the Quran says, which goes completely against what the idea of the Trinity in the Bible. But you've sort of iterated that you believe both prophets, and I'm wondering how you can possibly take that stance.
Because I believe that the Quran was modified just enough to keep people deceived.
My point is that.
Do you see that verse up there for Joel? Where I posted
my
it.
Point is
Joel.
my point was that the two texts contradict each other, because in from the surah I just read, it says that Muhammad was the final prophet, but the Bible says that Malachi was the final prophet. So, and a prophet is simply somebody that speaks for God. Now, I agree that there are maybe modern prophets according to Christians, but you know, my question would be to you is which one is correct?
Well, Muhammad wasn't correct in that case. You know, maybe he was talking about for the Arabs or for the Ishmaelites. Okay, but it's not true. I've received prophecy before. I've seen people in the church prophesy. I've seen people getting healed. I've seen all kinds of, you know, things that they claim come true. And plus, you've got Joel 2:28 here, where it says, "In the last days I'll pour my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy." Now, Malachi was way before Muhammad was. So that should clear up a lot.
That's the last days, though. And again, I was saying that I'm talking about according to the scripture. I said that I didn't say there weren't modern prophets, but I'm talking about. Okay, I'll ask my question from earlier. Was Jesus God, or was he, or not?
Yeah, Jesus is God. It's him. That's the best way I can explain it. It's him.
According to Islam, Jesus is not God.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that I talk about in the Quran is sometimes I think that the verses were modified just enough to keep man deceived. Let me show you something. Let me pull up a verse here in the Bible in Revelation. I want you to see.
When did that happen? When were they modified?
What happened? I think 10 minutes after he died, probably, they started messing with everything.
Okay, but
I mean, if you read the story about all the people that were his scribes and that were his family, as soon as he died, basically they were all power grabbing and politicking, which was the exact opposite of what Jesus's disciples did, and that was also prophesied.
No. They actually, have you read the book of Acts? They did the exact same thing. They went around, they made it political. Paul
but they were united.
People how to behave in the church. No, they were not. Paul started writing letters to different churches telling them that they were wrong, they were incorrect.
They were persecuted.
Heavily divided.
Yeah, and they were persecuted too. They had to do what they did in secret. It's a wonder that the religion grew as big as it did.
And most of it was sorted out in the Council of Nicaea, I think it was, that they put together what the official doctrine would be.
I'm just wondering why it matters if, to my point, if the Quran has been changed. I mean, are you saying the Bible hasn't been changed?
But why? No, the Bible has been changed several times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But why do you think it was changed immediately after Muhammad died? Why do you think the Quran was changed?
There was factions of Saudis. There was factions of Saudis trying to make Mecca and Saudi Arabia the focal point, and Mecca and Medina the focal point of Muhammad's significance. And then you had the Persians who were also Muslim. And everyone is superior to everyone else. That's how people are. Even today, I guess it's ran over in that regard. So we were talking about bigotry earlier.
Let's go a bit more modern then. What about Joseph Smith? Do you think he was a prophet?
I don't know. I've never even really delved into Mormonism whatsoever, and so I really don't feel comfortable saying anything about it because I always felt like a church is just pure naivety that, if it says Jesus Christ at the name of the church, then they're probably starting off in the okay.
Well, he did claim to be a prophet. So do you believe that or not?
I don't know. I haven't read any of the Book of Mormon. haven't read any of his writings or anything. And I would have to do that in order to give you an answer for that. But I mean, I hear that he was a sinful man and he was an adulterer and he was a liquor store or this or that and the other and weird stuff. But so I take that like with a grain of salt as well as the other stuff. Like he was a prophet with a grain of salt. I just never dove into it enough to know. I don't know.
Freak, are you a polytheist?
No, I believe that Jesus is God.
You are a monotheist or a polytheist?
Monotheist. There's only
believe that other gods
the Most
exist.
High.
So Muhammad campaigned against polytheism, and Muslims today, Muslim terrorists, sometimes kill Christians because they say that they are polytheist.
I understand that. Yeah, they're wrong, but I understand that they do that.
Does God have a son?
Yeah, sure he does. His one begotten son is Jesus, and other than that, if we become believers, then we become his sons, according to Revelation.
I see.
What's that verse?
Do you have a church that you go to?
I freak out the church most of the time.
That's fair enough. But have you ever were you going? I'm just wondering, was there a church that you were going to regularly before, or
Yeah. I found myself stuck.
Are you a Jew also?
Florida. No. I found myself stuck in Florida for a while, and I went to a church there, and it was great and all, but
what kind of church?
I came to know him later in my life, so I was kind of already set in my. I was a rock and roll kind of a guy or whatever, science guy, computer guy, and then whatever, and then this God stuff came along, and so I didn't really fit into the church. I didn't grow up with it.
Did Jesus die on the cross and get resurrected?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, Muslims reject that.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yes, they do.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what religion you are.
Can you see how it's confusing?
The spirit of prophecy, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit. I'm trying to pull up a verse.
This is why I call you a troll, the freak, because there's no person. I feel like you have a misunderstanding of the scriptures. And
look, man, I used to be a Christian, right? I understand how hard it is having people question what you believe, and I actually kind of respect the honesty when you said that you didn't know about Mormonism or things like that. So that's great. That's cool. I'm not convinced you're a troll anymore, but it is very, very confusing because you're not conflicting things.
Do we see the Revelation 19:10 verse on the stream live chat?
Hold on.
No, I used to be a Christian,
Mark,
but I'm no longer a Christian.
Can you share your screen, Mark?
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say if you could share your screen. Did you make a okay? Because yeah, did you paste another? Okay, never mind. Actually, I'll just read the quote. It says Revelation 19:10, and I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Okay, so once Christ was glorified by the Father, by God, once Allah raised him to himself, the only way to receive prophecy is by the Spirit, and the only way to receive the Spirit is through Jesus Christ. So that means that Muhammad had to be a born-again Christian in order to receive any revelation from God whatsoever. He wouldn't have been receiving anything from God without acknowledging Jesus Christ.
He got his revelations from the angel Gabriel, sir.
Even still.
Go ahead, Mark.
So why should we believe you when you say that you've received revelations and visions and you've seen God and stuff? You know, why would we believe that when a lot of people have claimed to see a lot of different stuff? Like Joseph Smith claimed to be a prophet. And we don't believe him because his story was kind of ridiculous. But you're claiming the same. How do we test that? How do we find out if that's true or not, Free?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to take my testimony for at its word. You have to,
Why?
You have to decide whether or not I'm coherent when we speak, when we have these discussions, even when we're trolling. I mean, it's not like I'm insane.
Well, you don't sound coherent. You've basically said that you're a monotheist who believes in a number of different gods and believes the prophets of the gods. You say you're a Christian that doesn't follow Christian scripture. You say that you believe in Allah while still being... None of what we're talking to you sounds coherent.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I mean, I don't know how you can be a monotheist and believe in a Trinity. And Muslims, though they regard Jesus as a great prophet, like I said, they do not see him as divine and do not consider him the Son of God, which is, I can't think of anything more fundamental to the religion of Christianity. And also, like I said, they don't think that he was crucified nor that he was resurrected. So if you don't believe that, you're not a Christian. Sorry.
Well, listen, this is what the Muslims believe. It's all true. It's all true, except that Jesus part. Tell me how that's sane.
You can't just say that part. That's the most important part of the religion.
That's the one single event that defines Christianity is the resurrection.
Right. I'm talking about as a Muslim. If from the Muslim perspective, how can you sit there and say, "Yeah, it's all true. It's all true."
Okay, my patience is running thin with this person. Are you guys going to be upset if I just boot him because this is just trolling?
It's your channel. You do what you want, my friend.
Yeah, this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, that's bullshit. You can't simply say
This is going in circles.
yeah, and I don't mean to be like Darth and be booting people, but like you said, this is my channel, and you can't. I'm sorry, but you cannot say that, I'm a Christian. I believe everything about Christianity except for that whole Jesus thing. Like, it's non-negotiable.
Yeah, that's not. I think
that's what he was saying. Muslims believed. They believed everything that Christians do beside the Jesus thing, which is not true. That's not an accurate. That's not an accurate depiction of Islam at all. Like, it's just.
I don't think he understands anything about any kind of religion. I think he had a bad dream one time.
Oria's high as hell.
The
thing that really tripped me up was, how are you a monotheist and a Christian, but you think that Brahma and Shiva and all of the Hindu gods are real? How do you get there?
I think he said he was sort of agnostic on them, but still, what is that? Do you think he was?
No, he said he believed they existed, but
that's weird.
That his God and Jesus was the highest one, which I have never ever heard a Christian say that. Oh yeah, there are other gods spread out around the place. And he
had just said he was a monotheist.
Right. Like, how can you be a monotheist and think there's a pantheon of other gods, just not as high as your own? That's not a monotheist.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that my question to him was brilliant. I feel like I really exposed him with some of the questions I asked because, it's because, and that's a question I'll probably keep in my back pocket for the next time I talk to a theist. I'll ask them, tell me your experience of seeing God or whatever that made you a Christian, and then when they tell me, I would ask them, what'd you say?
Most theists don't claim to see God.
Well, Matt Slick does.
Yeah,
Oh,
a lot
really?
of them don't.
Wow.
I haven't.
Yeah, well,
I haven't met one.
If I heard some of them,
I met one, but they were kind of crazy.
If I heard somebody say that they had an experience like that, then I would ask them, to tell me about it, and then just say, okay, if you heard somebody say that, but you fill in the blanks of, Jesus with a different God or from a different religion, would you believe them?
Yeah,
and
it's a brilliant question because they likely will say no, that person was mistaken. Oh, but I did have the actual experience.
Yeah, and then I would ask them, well, why did you not believe them? And then they would tell me, and then I would say, well, that's why I don't believe your God. Can you understand that now? And it's you sort of lead them around, So it's interesting. I could be wrong, but I don't think I've heard that line of questioning before.
What I don't understand
is patient. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, what I don't understand is why we have to take his testimony at his word. Like, do we do that for anything else? Do we just hear somebody go, oh, I'm a Nigerian prince, I'm going to give you $10,000. Why do we have to take his testimony at its word? That's not how we evaluate whether something's true or not. Especially when the claim is such of a high, extraordinary significance that
you got whisked off into the spirit realm. That's just insane to believe. That's an insane thing to say. And honestly, if you're hearing voices and if you're seeing things that aren't there, there's a word for that: schizophrenia.
Well, and look, I think it's wrong to try to comment on somebody's mental state or whatever, but he might have had some experience. But how do we then tell what the experience was? There's no way we can tell, and he's welcome to believe that. DeFrick can believe that all he wants, but the problem is that why he comes in with this attitude of like, well, you've got to believe me at my word. Why don't you believe me? Why should we? You're not giving us anything besides a claim, and that's not enough to justify belief. I'm not going to get into whether he had an experience or not. He had some experience, or else he wouldn't be saying it. But how do we rule out, drugs, DMT, like you said, schizophrenia? I mean, I'm not saying he has that, but how do we rule that out?
No, I wasn't trying to insult him or anything like that. But
no, I get your point. Yeah.
Normally, that is what it is, and that's why initially in the chat before I even hopped in here. In the chat on YouTube, I said, that sounds like a really good acid trip, man, because I have taken 5-ME, the D right here, I'm sorry, DMT, and yeah, I had a very similar experience. It wasn't God, it was actually more like hell, but I did have a similar experience, and I'm not saying he didn't. I'm not, discounting that. It's just, it sounds like something other than divine intervention.
Well, in my younger days, I did take a few different things, including some very strong LSD, and I saw some weird shit like that was insane. I saw a bridge with lights on it turn into a worm and crawl off down the highway kind of thing. This weird, you can see.
You went to Asgard.
Hey?
I said, oh, you went to Asgard.
Well,
sure.
Well, I certainly hope that you weren't driving, because we don't advocate for such things on this channel. And I have only done legal substances that were legal, which is salvia in terms of hallucinogens. And when I did salvia, I was watching the NBA finals, and then you guys know what the court looks like in the Boston TD Garden. You know how it has that very specific wood floor. Do you know what I'm talking about? or no?
I know what a basketball court looks like, but not that specific.
Yeah, but they have like a, well, it doesn't matter, but they have a very distinct looking court. And I saw that court come out of my big screen TV and come onto the floor in my room, and then Kevin Garnett walked into my living room.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that Kevin Garnett was actually there and came to visit me. But you know, and then
good time.
yeah, well, not always. Salvia is kind of nasty because that was the like first time I did it, but the second time my plan was to you know, because with salvia you kind of smoke it and then you don't have very much time before liftoff. So my plan was I was going to listen to like a Tool song, which is, one of my favorite songs is Zombie by Tool, and I had my headphones around my neck, and these were wired headphones. I didn't have them on my ears, but I took the hit, and before I could even get my headphones on, I was just kind of stuck there. And then I thought that the cord was starting to wrap around my neck and choke me. Yeah. So that wasn't a pleasant experience. But salvia, experience. Yeah, I'm like never again.
Yeah,
but
and
DMT
this kind of stuff. It's you know, it's hard to. And then how do you explain that to somebody else and you sort of demonstrate that it's real? You can't. And this is the same problem. How do you demonstrate that what you've seen as a personal revelation? What does Matt Delahanty say? He says to everybody else, personal revelation is hearsay. And he's right. Like there's no way you can demonstrate that to anybody else.
Yeah, I find it so interesting with Matt Delahanty, because I believe that he was a Southern Baptist preacher, and
no, he wasn't a preacher. He was
he was planning. He was planning on becoming one, but he definitely had a very strong belief, and now he's a strong advocate for atheism. And it's interesting to me to see somebody go from one end of the spectrum like that to the other, and you know, because I personally have been basically an atheist for as long as I can remember. Yeah, I know that I was about 7 years old or so in Sunday school when it first sort of clicked for me, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around actually believing it so thoroughly. Although I know that some people, they have sort of a casual belief where it's just like, yeah, you know, I go to church on Sunday, but it's not something that really they heavily think about in their day-to-day life, you know. But for somebody who was training to become a preacher, you know, like it's interesting because he talks about like, you know, did I really believe that stuff? And I think with the really important stuff of the religion, like the stuff I mentioned earlier about Jesus, like, yes, but then, you know, when it comes to like laying a striped stick before a calf and it'll give a striped, you know, baby, you know, that doesn't affect somebody's day-to-day life. So they don't really believe it. They might not even know the passages in there. You know, that's just sort of trivia that atheists know about, that, you know, I'm sure that Matt probably knew about that passage, but, you know, the belief part, you know, because some people ask, like, do they really believe that? Like, I've had a lot of people ask me, does Kent Hovind really believe the stuff he says? And when it comes to him saying that, oh, you came from a rock, okay? And I'm like, no, that's just him making fun of atheists. But when it comes to the 6,000 year universe and the earth in 6 days, like, yes, he absolutely does believe that. And some of the more outlandish stuff, like when you have people around you, you know, that are yes men, constantly affirming what you're saying and treating you as a leader and calling you doctor, you're going to believe your own stuff, you know?
Well, I liken it to those. Have you ever seen those martial artists of the fake martial arts kind of thing? It's brilliant to watch because they're basically they will claim that they can, you know, incapacitate someone without touching them and stuff. And they believe it so deeply, and their students believe it, that they will, you know, yell at this person and they'll fall over, kind of thing. And I saw this one where one of these guys, basically he was claiming all this stuff, and he got into a ring with an actual MMA fighter, you know, just an amateur one. And this poor old guy had the crap kicked out of him because really, you know, unless somebody else is delusional enough to believe it, it doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't work. But
Right.
you know, if you look up these fake martial arts, but they actually are so sure that they can, you know, point at somebody and yell, and they will incapacitate that person. They believe it, and their
Right.
students believe it. So it works until you get somebody that doesn't believe it in, and suddenly the emperor's got no clothes. You know, like they can't incapacitate somebody.
Well, I suppose I could certainly imagine somebody who's, you know, sort of large and threatening. Like if they like were towering over somebody and, you know, shouting at somebody, they could, you know, incapacitate that person to where they were too scared to move, or could actually fall over, you know. But that's a different situation, obviously. But
Yeah,
from what you're saying, but
yeah.
that's like this person like just not even like moving, but simply pointing at somebody and saying something loudly. They're just going to give you a weird look. They're not going to like be blown back like some sort of
That's
movie,
right.
you know.
But
I'll have to look into that.
Person, yeah, look up the videos. It's absolutely fascinating. A reporter went into one of them, and you know, he was making up excuses as to why the reporter didn't fall down paralyzed, kind of thing. But the point is that these people sincerely believe that they have these mystical martial arts powers to incapacitate people, and the level of that group delusion, you know, they will never not believe that, no matter what happens. You know, even having the crap kicked out of them by a martial artist who knows what they're doing and has some sort of MMA training will not convince them that it doesn't work. They still believe it. And that's, I guess I'm just sort of bringing it up to highlight the level of self-delusion that we, all humans, are capable of.
Right. Especially men, you know, like I saw, do you know about the website The Onion?
Yeah, the parody.
Well, yeah, because some people they don't know about it, and like they think the articles are real. But I saw an article on there that was, or maybe it was one of their videos, their spoof videos, but it was talking about how men. It was giving a fake statistic about how men exaggerate how much they could beat up another guy in a fight, in a hypothetical fight, even though they have no training and are out of shape. You know. They've never been in a fight before. And, you know, it's like, I used to watch a lot of UFC, and, you know, you would always hear, like guys, especially when they're drunk, there's a guy, even if they're a big dude, would say like, you know, they're looking at a lightweight or even a featherweight fighter, like, and they say, oh, you know, I could probably take that guy. Or looking at like even the lowest, like watching the first fights on where it's like the kind of less popular people, and it's like even the like worst scrub in the UFC would destroy the average like guy. Like the
training,
the endurance that they have, the body fat percentage, and just simply knowing how to throw a punch. Like you would be, and especially thinking that just because somebody is a featherweight, like for example, Jose Aldo, I don't know if you've ever seen his fights, but like he ends fights in like 6 seconds. And he's a featherweight, so he looks like a small dude. He doesn't look super muscular, but he's one of the best fighters in the world, and it's incredible to watch him. You know, but I've heard like I heard one like guy say that he thought that, you know, he could maybe take him in a fight, and I was like, no, you would get kicked in the face and you'd be on the ground like twitching, because that's what he does. He kicks people, and he's so fast, it's unreal. But you know, it's sort of a Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, but you don't know whether that's would they actually believe it, or they're just sort of trying to project some kind of masculinity. You know, like
that's a good point.
You know, so it's impossible to tell whether they do actually have delusion or think, hey, I could beat this professional fighter, which I'm not saying they don't have that. They could well have that delusion, or whether it is just a matter of, you know, I'm going to say this to make myself look a lot more masculine and, you know, a lot bigger than I ordinarily would be.
Another thing is them saying that they could win against a female fighter, which again is just not true.
Oh yeah, like Ronda Rousey, who you know, has a history of breaking people's arms and stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
she would
kick my ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm happy to admit that, you know, like.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a bit of martial arts. I did a bit of kickboxing. Younger, I did like sort of karate and stuff. But the one that I found really beautiful was capoeira. It's a Brazilian dancing martial art. Completely useless in any kind of street fighting. It's more a dance and stuff. But
that's Jose Aldo is from Brazil, and I think he does like some Brazilian jiu-jitsu and different.
But capoeira, it's not practical in the slightest. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, but not practical. It's not something you know. If I ever got into a fight, I would fall back on kickboxing, not capoeira. It's
that type of thing will help you stay in shape and keep your endurance up.
Absolutely, and it's a lovely form. And I did it years and years ago too. You know, I'm out of training, out of practice. There's no way, you know, somebody with training would kick my ass, no doubt about it. But
you kind of look like George St. Pierre, so
okay.
I'm just kidding. Just because he's bald. Or,
you know what? That's the least offensive person I've ever been compared to. Thanks, AJ. I appreciate that. But I guess I'm just bringing up. I've been kicked by women before, and it hurts a lot. Like there's no, you know. I think the hardest I've ever been kicked is by a woman doing a fly kick in capoeira, and just, you know, I was unprepared. You know, she had a wind up on her, and it's the hardest I've ever been kicked in my life. Like I definitely saw stars. And was taken out. It was a nasty kick, and it was accidental contact, but man, it hurt. I think that someone like Ronda Rousey would, you know, but you know, how do you tell what's delusional, what's somebody's just saying to get attention? What somebody actually believes and is true. I guess the takeaway is there is no way to distinguish from the outside, which is why personal revelation is pointless for evidence. You know, this whole idea that the freak had of you have to take my testimony at its word, that's not how any of this works. It's a reason why in the courts, like after the Salem witch trials, they disallowed spectral evidence. Spectral evidence is that idea that, oh, I had a dream, I had a revelation, I imagined, you know, I had a vision that this person, you know, was attacking me, so they're a witch kind of thing. We disallowed all of that because the evidence is so poor that there is no way to back it up. So this idea that you must believe me at my word, sorry, mate, can't do it.
Yeah. We sort of got a little bit off topic there, but it was, you know, I think that he's a troll based on what I saw when he came on Amy's show, and you know, there was an article that I saw that was talking about somebody claiming to be a Christian and a Muslim, and I get that the God thing is similar, but to me, I just feel like, you know, if there's so many people out there where they're a Christian, and if you ask them, are you a Christian and a Muslim, they would instantly be able to say, hell no. And same thing with the Muslims. But I asked the freak, you know, are you both? And there was this long silence where he was thinking about it. And it's like, what is there to think about? Like, it seems like you should sort of know what religion you are. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you can be more than one religion.
I'd like to think, I would like to come down that people aren't trolls, that he is just either having his own Christian sect, which has no relation to any Christian you've ever seen before in your life. However, you know, the fact that he's admitted to trolling, you know, he's basically said that he is a troll and that's what he is doing. I think that's pretty damning. I'd like to, you know, I think that if you get trolled by some guy making up this religion and you treat him seriously because that's what you like to do, you hate to say, hey, you don't believe what you believe, you're just a po, basically.
in my opinion, one of the best things you can do to a troll is, instead of just outright just, insulting them and flaming them and just, going off on them, what I like to do is make them like earn their trolling. Like, okay, I'm going to take you seriously, and we're going to go through this, and I'm going to make you keep this act up until you start to get sick of it. And I want to expose how what you're doing is obviously not in good faith. And I think I was sort of able to do that with him a little bit, because once we got to asking questions showing like, are you monotheist? Like, are you, do you think God has a son? Do you think Jesus was crucified and resurrected? Like, once you, like, it's easy for him to just say like, oh, I'm a Christian and a Muslim because Allah means God and Allah and Yahweh are the same, which I agreed with, but there are fundamentally contradictory things within the religion.
Absolutely.
And he was really trying to dismiss the whole prophet thing. And oh shit, Bird is in the chat. Well, Bird, you can hop on if you want, It's always, we had a good time on the Atheist Roundtable yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Like, it was really funny, like, because Oz came in pretending to be a Christian, and he was asking me a bunch of questions about like, as if he was a theist, as to sort of practice like, being questioned by a theist. And it was just fun. Like, I was laughing, That's why I enjoy going on Amy's show. But man, I feel like there's sometimes when people like Sunflower, who's in the chat right now, I don't know if he's still watching because I just ignored him. Hold on one second.
I like Sunflower.
I don't really like him because he, I make videos about Kent Hovind, and I did a debate with him about why evolution should be taught in public schools. And Sunflower said, thank you. He said that people who hold on.
Well, now it's the Mark Reed show. I am taking over, and
yeah, he said that people who make videos debunking young Earth creationists are pathetic, and like they need to get a life and find something better to do with their time. And it's not a big deal about, creationism being taught in schools, and, it's like not actually happening. And more people believe in astrology than young Earth creationism. And, he's been rude to Amy and stuff. And I just don't like it when I'm having a good time in a stream and, a grifter theist comes in and derails the whole thing. And then it's just not fun. It's because nobody gets a chance to talk, and then the theist just sucks all the energy out of the room. It's so annoying to me, because that's what LPP did on a stream that was supposed to be a review about my debate. He came in and made the entire stream about him. And that is why I will never engage with him ever.
No, that's your choice. That's your choice. Sunflower can be incredibly abusive. I've sort of tried to point that out to him before, but I think he's just really young and doesn't realize that when he goes off on these tirades that are incredibly abusive towards people, that they do have consequences, and people do remember that.
Well,
I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, but yeah.
Yeah, he said, in Discord, like, oh, we're talking on the internet right now. Like, this is Discord. It's like, well, you're talking to people in voice chat or on camera, and you're talking to real people, and you can't insult people and call them names like, using words like autistic to insult people, or calling somebody like a crackhead to insult them, because that's just fucked up to use autistic as an insult. And also insulting somebody, even if that person did have a substance abuse problem, which the person never does. First of all, you don't know that. But even if they did, that's not a good reason to mock somebody, because substance abuse, addiction, and alcoholism is another facet of mental health, and it's something that literally kills people and just makes people's lives very difficult. And it should be destigmatized because people are humiliated when they're going through that. And I just think it's messed up. Like, if you want to, this is the internet and people are going to throw insults back and forth. But in my opinion, there's like, I don't know if you were in my stream the other day, we were talking about this, but I just think there's a certain line that simply shouldn't be crossed, like.
And you're very entitled to take that. You are absolutely right to take that position. That's definitely something that you're entitled to believe. I just generally, I don't know. I generally don't block people and don't get rid of them until they've done something pretty bad. Sunflower, I give a lot of leeway because he is very young, and that's all. Like, it's just his age is obviously really angry, sort of kind of self-destructive at the same time with his behavior, because the stuff that he says is just so abusive and will cause people just to dump him and get rid of him, because the stuff that he says is just horrible. But at the same time, you would expect some progress, and maybe he won't make any. I don't know. I'll have to make that decision if I talk to him again. But yeah. But I've had some interesting conversations with him too. As well, he can be very interesting, very good to talk to. It depends on how you get him on the day, really. But you're very entitled to your position. That's fine. I totally understand where you're coming from with Maddox. He's work. He's a lot of work. Just putting up with his bullshit.
Yeah, he is, and I've been trying to stop myself from doing this because of calling people stupid, because I got offended when Maddox did that to me. And I am a sensitive person, and I'll admit that it did kind of hurt my feelings. It made me feel bad, but that's the point. That was his intention. And I tried to give him another chance when he came on. Like I said, he came on Amy's stream that was supposed to be reviewing my debate, and that's what we were doing. And then he came on, and everybody in the stream had a bone to pick with him and wanted to fight with him. And he addressed something to me, and I told him that, like, I was upset with you because, that you called me that. And if, because he thought that, because his thing about the genetic code being like a computer code and stuff, he thought that that had something to do with my Ken Hovind debate about this curriculum in public schools. And so he was asking me questions that according to him, were about genetics and then computer coding.
I think you touched on computer code in that debate.
I mentioned it one time. I mentioned that one time.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. More specifically, genetics never came up, other than I said that I don't think that the DNA code is like a computer code like C++, because the DNA code has junk data. It has non-coding regions where and copies of retroviruses and just stuff that's not needed, and then copies of that stuff. And so also in the sequences of letters, you can change multiple letters and have nothing happen to the actual organism. Whereas in a computer code, if you change often one character, it could make the program you're trying to make not work.
I'm painfully aware. Yes.
That was my example.
And the other difference is that computers don't run code. Code is only there so we can understand it.
Right.
Computers run something called instructions. It's not code. Like, for instance, when you mentioned C++, that's a higher level code. When you go down through it, like C++ is sort of compiled into a sort of sort of binary and things like that. But binary is still a code, right? The computer doesn't run binary. It doesn't run zeros and ones. What it runs is instructions, which are sets of either an electron charge or not an electron charge. Binary is a code so we can understand it. The computer doesn't actually run the code.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a risk here.
Ooh, sunflower.
Hey, what's up, guys? I've been listening. It's been an interesting talk.
I agree.
Oh, thank you. How are you doing today, sunflower?
Doing great. Beautiful day here where I live.
Did you see the start of the stream where I was talking to Mr. Batman?
I unfortunately missed that.
Well, it'll be up on my channel later, as well as my conversation with Darth Dawkins will be up within a day or two. I'm editing that.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's quite a doozy.
I think I've had my allotment of Darth Dawkins for the week. I'll
I
get
wouldn't
to it
blame you.
next week, and I find it hard to watch. Very hard to watch.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you. Were you listening when DeFreak was on? Like, do you have an opinion about that? Like, what do you think?
I didn't hear that either, I don't think. What was he saying?
He was saying basically, I asked him, are you a Christian? Well, okay, let me ask you a question. Are you a Christian and a Muslim?
No.
At the same. See how that didn't take you very long to answer? I asked him that question, and it was like several seconds of silence where he had to think about it.
Well, in fairness, we'd led up to that by saying, because he claimed to be, so he basically claimed to have seen God, basically seen and conversed with a prophet of God. And our thing was, well, do you believe prophets of other religions like Muhammad, for instance? And he was, yes, I do believe Muhammad. And that's where that came from. So a Christian that believes Muhammad was a prophet, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that it would necessarily, I don't think that those two things are necessarily mutually exclusive.
Right.
Like, I think the more mutually exclusive thing would be, a person is like Muslim insofar as they don't believe that Jesus was God or is God, then that would be mutually exclusive. That's a Muslim doctrine that's mutually exclusive with Christianity. But just believing that Muhammad was a prophet, while I don't usually subscribe to that, I don't think that would actually be incompatible with Christianity necessarily.
Okay. So what if the other thing that he said is that he thought that the Hindu gods, Brahma and Shiva and, Krishna, were gods as well. They existed, just not as high as his God.
That's one of those really weird things that I never know how to interpret that when people say stuff like that, because like it's hard for me at that point. I just don't think they're using the word, like, it's a misnomer to call those Indian things gods. It's like maybe there's some sort of, I don't know.
There are many gods in the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, by the way, I just banned LPP from the channel from my stream. Yeah, he said, "Oh, so you're you're literally gonna be talking shit about me for 15 minutes and then not literally add me." That's right. You can go fuck yourself, LPP.
Yeah, sorry, Maddox. I think AJ has some very strong opinions on the matter.
Hello,
hey,
Dino.
AJ.
How's it going?
Fine.
Hello, Dino.
Did you like the new Godzilla movie?
I think you already know my opinion on Godzilla vs. Kong.
No, I don't.
It's amazing. Just best MonsterVerse movie.
That's cool. I haven't seen it yet, but what were you saying, Sunflower? I was busy banning LPP from my StreamYard.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, I don't think the word gods should apply. Like, I understand that the word God, like, so many different religions use it because it's kind of like a catch-all when we're referring to something that's vaguely similar. But like, if a Christian actually, like, I would never use the word gods to refer, even if I was, let's for a second pretend these Indian like deity things exist. Maybe I would use the word deities for them and like God for the Christian God. It's like, I don't believe in the Hindu or Buddhist deities, but I'm not like, I can imagine a worldview in which there's some legitimacy to them, but they're not even, I wouldn't use even the word God if I was a Christian to refer to them, maybe, but
So
I don't know.
would you see them as spirits or some kind of supernatural beings,
I would,
entities in some way?
because I mean, I find, you know, some of the stuff like Hindu stuff interesting, Eastern religions. And so I like, to me, it's, I would categorize them as like a willful force that maybe could be described as an entity, but I don't see it as them as having like intentionality towards people, if that makes sense. It's kind of weird, but
how would you resolve the conflict then? I mean, they do say that Shiva is the creator and destroyer, like the creator of the universe and the destroyer of the universe, kind of thing. So obviously, you wouldn't believe them when they claim.
Yes, you're correct there. Like, that's one of the things that I wouldn't subscribe to at all. And again, I don't really have a strong opinion on the other ones. Like, I don't know, what is there? There's I don't know if Krishna's Hindu, but then there's like the other one. Like, who's the god? Do they have like the god of like sexuality? What's her name again? Maybe that is Krishna. I don't know. But like like, you know, like you said, the idea that there could be these kind of like forces of nature isn't necessarily wrong, but I would never use the word gods to refer to them. Personally, I mean, I don't really believe in them. But
what do you think? Well, he was saying that he believes everything that Muslims believe. But I asked him, do you believe that Jesus was crucified and got resurrected? And he said, yes. And I said, well, Muslims don't believe that. And I said, did God have a son? And he said, yes. And I said, well, Muslims don't believe that either. And I said, who was the final prophet in the scriptures? Because in the Quran, it's Muhammad, but in the Bible, it's Malachi. And, you know, he was saying, oh, well, there are still prophets today. I was like, I know that, but I'm talking about the scriptures. So, yeah. And he said he was a monotheist, but he believed in the Trinity, and it was just all this contradictory stuff. And then I booted him for being a troll.
Claim that the prophets are ongoing, and in fairness, he claimed to be a prophet himself. If you didn't catch that,
yeah, I saw that, and I agreed with him that, you know, there are Christians who say there are still prophets today. But I was like, okay, well, what, according to what happened in the canon of the holy text, what happened, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I don't think that's really important to him, to be honest with you. Strangely enough, I think that his personal experience that he seemed to believe that he had was more important than any scripture.
I would recommend him go to, you know, I don't know if you noticed, but I asked him if he went to a church, and he said no. And I asked him about the church he used to go to, and he didn't say what church it was, because that would have been too specific. So I would recommend him to go to a Unitarian church. Or did he?
He actually said he scared his church off.
But I'm sure he did.
Well, you know, I mean,
yeah, but he didn't say what like the name or denomination of the church was, or if it was also, although I asked him church, not a mosque. So that was kind of telling in a way. But Sunflower, did you have an experience where you felt like you saw God, or you felt like you had a sort of transcendent spiritual experience? Either one, you did?
Yeah, I would say felt God, not saw God.
Okay. Was that what made you feel like you became a Christian, or was that after you were already a Christian?
I don't know. I can't demarcate a specific time, like a day or like a moment where I said, okay, now I'm a Christian. Like for me, I mean, this is what I've in case you probably don't know this, but like as long as I pondered the God question, I've been at least an agnostic theist. So I've
heard you say that.
Yeah, so that's what I was like as long as I can remember. I was sort of the position, well, I do believe in God. I even would say I sort of feel God. I have a confidence in the existence of God. I just didn't have any reason to believe it was Christian God or Muslim God, or I didn't know anything about like which which religion I guess was right. And then it was just as I actually started looking more into the the Bible and I heard arguments for things like the historicity of Jesus, because actually like growing up, I'm from a very living like an extremely progressive secular like left leaning part of the country where like people just dismissed like religion as stupid, like all around me since I can remember. Like my family didn't, but they also didn't. We were kind of people that only really went to church on like Easter or whatever, Christmas. Like it wasn't like it wasn't forced onto me at all. It was kind of like very tepid. So then I just like when everyone around me is like just dismissing Christianity as like so silly and ridiculous. I just didn't really think about it. I wasn't even sure of the historicity of Jesus for most of my life growing up. And then I realized like the overwhelming majority of secular and even atheist scholars, like it's not they don't 100% agree, but the vast majority do agree that he was at least a historical figure. And that was like eye-opening to me, because I literally was living as if like there was no consensus among people. And then once I figured that out, I started looking into it more, and then I started reflecting more about why have I always felt that God existed, and then like how does that match up with what the Bible says I would feel and expect and see, and it all started lining up. And so it's really just kind of become I guess my Christianity's become stronger over time, but it's hard for me to think of a specific point in which it like snapped into it or something. Like,
so what was this feeling? Can you describe the feeling that you're saying you had, and sort of tie it into how you knew it from a deity or a god or some kind of supernatural origin rather than just your feelings?
No offense, I'd rather not. It's kind of a deeply personal experience.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We're not trying to do some sort of gotcha thing.
No, I apologize.
I don't think it was a bad faith question at all. That's just my answer.
No,
that's
fine.
fair enough.
Not a problem.
Because Mark he liked a question that I asked the freak earlier, which was because he was very sort of open about his supposed spiritual experience that he had, because he kept talking about it. Because I asked him, to sort of describe the experience he had, and then he did. And then what I asked him was, okay, well, if you heard a person who was of the Hindu religion give the same exact story you told me, but instead they were convinced to believe in Vishnu, like, would you believe them? Would you believe that they actually saw that God? And he said that he wasn't sure whether or not the Hindu gods existed. Right, Mark? Is that your recollection?
Sorry, I was looking up something. What was that?
I was just talking about, when I asked, the question that I asked him, that the freak that you like, and that the one that you liked, and then about his claim was given by a person of a Hindu faith.
That's right.
And how he also said, did he say that he wasn't sure whether or not the Hindu gods existed?
Well, no, he said he was sure that they existed. What he said, that he would believe a prophet of another faith if they said that they had a vision or revelation of a god, their god. So if a Hindu said, okay, I had a revelation of Krishna, and he told me that enlightenment was coming and I would be reincarnated. So he said, well, yeah, I would believe that prophet as well, which I think it's a beautiful question, excellent, because I find it strange that someone would believe two prophets with totally contradictory ideas, and I think I pointed that out to him.
Yeah, because there can't be more than one last prophet, you know.
And there can't be more than one authoritative God. Like, for instance, what I tied to earlier was like Shiva being the creator and destroyer of the universe. You can't believe a prophet that says that Shiva is the creator and destroyer of the universe and also believe in Jesus Christ, who, you know, is supposed to be part of the Trinity, that's the creator of the universe. Those two ideas, I think they're incredibly contradictory. I don't know how you would hold them both in your head.
Right. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a pantheon of gods in the Hindu religion, but you couldn't say that you were of that faith. I'm not sure what that's exactly called, maybe being a Hindi, and say that you're a monotheist. But he said that he was a monotheist. But the Christian religion there's a Trinity, and Muslims are. I told him how Muslim terrorists sometimes they will kill Christians because they are polytheists, or they call them polytheists, you know. And to me, that was the question that really sort of was the nail in the coffin for me, because it's like, well, how many gods do you have? Because that's a big sticking point for Muslims, you know, because they say that it's just Allah. Allah has no son, and Jesus wasn't his son, and Jesus wasn't God in the flesh. He was simply a prophet of God in the Quran and the last prophet, but not a part of God. So when he said he was a monotheist, I'm like, okay. And then I asked him if he was a Jew, and he said no. I was like, well, that seems arbitrary, because if you're going to go that far, you might as well be a Jew also.
And a Buddhist and you know.
That would have made more sense to say you're a Christian and a Jew, right? Am I wrong about that?
Well, I find the Trinity incredibly confusing. I don't. Really? It is confusing. Yeah, I don't understand, like, because it's sort of set as this thing is a god, but not made up of three parts, but it is three things, but only one thing. And it boggles my mind. Maybe you can help me with this, Sunflower. Like, do you believe in the Trinity? Like that?
Yes, I do.
So, and do correct me if I've got any of this wrong. As far as I understand it, it's three entities or three parts of this God, but it's only one. So logically, I don't understand how something can be one and not one at the same time.
I don't know how much people they're gonna like this little. Have you guys seen that graphic?
You're gonna be more specific.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's like a very basic graphic. Here, I'll post it in the stream. Let me see here.
Oh yeah, you guys want to know what's the worst monster movie ever made?
That one with the from the 1950s, where it's that big, like, ugly bird monster that's got like
no.
Is it the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie? Because that was pretty bad.
I was talking about Ape vs. Monster.
I was going to say Godzilla 1998.
Yeah, that one's terrible. Yeah, 1998 is terrible.
Yeah.
But
that's a lot of fish.
Agree that an Asylum movie is worse.
Yeah, those are pretty bad, like Sharknado and stuff.
But Sharknado is supposed to be a parody, right? Like,
I'll say Sharknado 2 is bad because the first one's funny. The second one is just sort of like lame and hard to sit through. You know what I mean? Because
I haven't seen the second one.
Yeah, the first one is okay to watch.
Yeah, but they made Ape vs. Monsters, which is probably their cash in on Godzilla vs. Kong. And my God, it's one of the worst things ever.
I'm trying to. Have you heard of the Giant Claw? It's a 50s monster movie.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It has the ugliest monster like ever. Like it, and the people who starred in the movie, they didn't see the like monster until it came out. But can
I know what the bird. I know what that bird looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to paste a link in the chat because I can't really share my screen. My computer's too damn slow, but I'm going to paste a link in the chat to it.
For an absolute classic, Plan 9 from Outer Space has got to have at least a that's Ed Wood that did that. And like the tentacle monster in it, they couldn't even afford to animate the tentacles, so the person is just shaking over.
33 on Rotten Tomatoes is not a good sign.
Yeah. Well, the Asylum, they don't care about that. They just, as long as they get a movie out in time.
I'm looking at the bird's face, and yep, at least it's not from the Asylum.
Yeah, that almost looks better because it's kind of charming in a way. And it was 1957, you know. So you got to cut them some slack.
Pretty much.
To ask a random question, to the people in the stream, do you have a favorite band or musical artist?
Absolutely, but I don't know.
Okay, well, what is it?
I don't know if I should say that. It could reveal too much about my secret identity.
Well, you could give a different. You could give your second favorite if you want. I'm not sure how that would reveal your identity unless it's something like Lady Gaga or something. Who I love her music. So.
All right. Well, you don't have to, Sunflower. It's fine. I'm a bit weird. I like electro swing. So I'm going to go for Caravan Palace probably.
I can't say I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, my tastes are very niche. I like electro swing, which is electronic remixes of swing songs. So very, very niche, very weird. But you know, I mean, I mostly just do it while I'm coding and working at the gym, kind of thing. So
that makes sense. You know, I know. I think coders have a reputation for liking like house music and EDM. For some reason, because I think they like some sort of music that's
it's rhythmic.
It's like repetitive and it goes on for a long time. There's no lyrics, you know, because
it like puts you in a sort of like a flow state instead of having to distract you with like emotional singing.
Yep. So I like Glitch Hop as well for that, which is kind of like electronic music that's kind of video game-ish. Puts me in a good mood for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've got very, very random tastes, so I'm sorry if that says too much about me. I will live with it.
Well, you already told me you're a coder, so it doesn't reveal that much.
Well,
but
you know what? I'm just doing it for my uni thing. I'm not. I don't even like coding that much, but
you have to learn to love it.
Yeah, well, the problem is we have to learn C, and it's not even C++, it's just C. It's because like most code around is legacy code. It's old code that has never been changed, and 80% of it is this in C. So we have to learn C, and it's so easy to shoot yourself in the foot with C. It's so easy to screw up. It's terrible.
Well, that's like what I was saying in my analogy, you know, and but personally, my favorite band is 9 Inch Nails, and that's where I got my avatar is from some of the artwork for their album Year Zero. But I took that image and sort of modified it a little bit. Yeah. Mr. Batman left after 20 minutes of talking to me. He was.
Oh my god, that guy really is a coward.
Yeah, I mean, he kept saying, like, I thought he was going to leave before that because he kept saying over and over again. He was like, "Good day, sir." Like, repent or perish. Like, he didn't actually say that, but he got mad at me because I quoted Men in Black, and he left.
Maybe just really didn't like Will Smith.
Well, he's probably a racist, but I
don't know. I've seen a couple of drunken Mr. Batman tirades, and I just
he prefers to.
The fact that he's involved with children somewhere is really, like, as you're watching it, you go, wow, that guy should not be teaching children anything, as he rants on really nasty stuff.
Yeah, I even heard him say that he can teach because he says he's a sub, and he said, I don't know if he was just saying this as an insult, but he said, I can teach all grades. I've even taught special ed, and so that means I can teach you, you know. But man, if he is the last person who should be around special needs kids, let alone children in the first place, you know. I think that he's a liar when he says that he's a teacher. I just think that he's a liar.
Well, being a substitute is pretty easy in the States.
Yeah, it's impossible to say. Let's face it.
I mean, I like to doubt that someone's even a substitute teacher is to set the bar pretty low. Like
he says he's a science teacher, and if you're a science teacher, well, in my opinion, I can say that I feel like he is not a teacher. I could say that Kent Hovind is a teacher. Now, they might have taught at Christian schools. He may have substituted, but to me, if you're that ignorant of the science, then you didn't teach science. You gave information that was incorrect, or
okay. Well, I mean, if you're defining it like that, then sure. I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
to be a substitute, I think all you need is like some form of higher education, and like, you know.
Well, you have to pass tests and get certified, like either every year or every couple of years, and it's not, you know, super easy, but you know,
that might vary by state though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, they do have somewhat rigorous you know, requirements, because you don't want just anybody to be a sub. Like, I would hope that, you know, people like Mr. Batman are not able to be subs, because he always says that he's a science teacher, and you know, if you don't understand science, I don't get how you can either, because he hasn't said what type of school he teaches in, if it's like a Christian school or a regular school, but it seems like he usually subs like do subs usually stick with the same grade level, or am I wrong?
No, subs don't teach. Like, don't you know that, like, there's glorified babysitters? Like, they're just...
Yeah, I know, but they go into classrooms, you know, they're filling in. Do they usually stick with like the same grade level? Because he was like, I've taught 5th, 4th, and 3rd, and 2nd grade, and all this stuff.
They usually are like whatever, like licensed to be a sub in like a given county or district. And then literally just the way it works is like they'll get a call as soon as the teacher calls out, the school board like starts going down their list of subs, and then the first one that says they can come in and fill in that day just does, and they just sit there and like hand out a worksheet. Like, you don't really have to have any like teaching acuity to be a sub. And I'm not trying to like knock it. I'm just saying, like, it sounds like you assume that substitute teachers have to have like skill in teaching to get the job, and I don't really think that's the case.
Well, I guess, like you said, in my state, I guess it is a little bit different, because again, like in the school district where I went to, you know, it could be even different from district to district, you know. Yeah.
It could be way more strict where you live. Where I live, it's pretty easy. Yeah.
My question was about the grade level. Like, do they just take what they can get, or is it like, I know like a teacher who teaches at high school, they're not going to sub for a middle school class, are they?
They could, again, because it's like, I'm not 100% sure about this, but like the substitute, you know, they just sort of are called up on an as needed basis. I don't like,
yeah,
they need a sub. They need a sub.
I was thinking, because I feel like you need very specific teachers to teach like kindergarten, because that is a skill, in my opinion. Like, you need a really specific set of skills to be a good kindergarten teacher. You obviously have to be good with kids, and you have to be, you know, patient, and you know, I'm sure they have rigorous background checks and stuff, because he was acting like it was like every like grade, you know. But I don't want to
Could be
really waste
depending on
time
where
talking
you
about that, but
I don't know.
You know this graphic you put out, Sunflower? I've been just staring at it for the last minute. How it doesn't make any sense to me. Like
Okay.
philosophically speaking, like if the Son is God and the Father is God, but the Father is not the Son, that's like if A equals B and B equals C, but A does not equal C.
Okay, well, this is going to be a bad example, and people might get mad at me for this. But so is your hand you?
Well, it's part of me.
Is your foot you?
Well, it's part of me.
Your foot's not your hand, but they're both you.
Well, they're not
Well,
me. My foot isn't me. It's part of me.
It's a part of the
Like I
whole.
wouldn't point at my foot and say that's me.
Yeah,
It's a part of the whole.
Yeah, it's part of the whole, sure.
I have heard an example. I don't know if this is a good example, but I have heard somebody say, like, how can one thing be three things? And the person said, well, I'm one person, but I am a brother, I'm a father, and I'm a cousin to somebody, or an uncle.
Yeah, but those are relationship things. We're not talking about, there's still just the one entity, and we're talking about relationships between you and other entities.
What I don't know is what is the Holy Spirit? Like, what is that? And what's the difference between a spirit and a soul?
As far as I know, that Holy Spirit is the part that actually talks or communicates, has a relationship with Christians, basically.
Oh wow, okay.
So Jesus was the Messiah that came back. I could be completely right. Do correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was the part that Christians do feel when they have a connection to God, basically.
Yeah, I think there's I don't know if everyone agrees on that, but I think that's generally the case.
Oh, sure. There's probably like lots of different Christian ideologies that term it differently, but that's what I generally understood it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they call it the Holy Ghost too, but doesn't ghost imply that's like there was a previous human that lived, or a previous like entity that lived and it died and now it's a ghost? But I don't know. I think it's just another word for spirit, I guess. But do you know what is there a difference between a spirit and a soul?
In the context of the Holy Spirit, definitely.
No, I'm talking about just like in a person.
It depends on how you use spirit.
I guess no. I guess no.
Spirit as in sort of, esprit de corps, like school spirit kind of thing. I mean, it all depends, like these words that you're using.
Yeah, it's I'm not great at the semantic. Like I'm not one of those people that can say like, oh well, the Hebrew word in the Old Testament for spirit was, echokla, and then in the Greek it's it's halios. Like I'm not one of those guys that can break down the different semantic and etymology. So I'm probably not the best person to ask on that.
Yeah, I was just kind of asking like casually.
Do you believe in ghosts, Sunflower? I gotta know. Do you believe in ghosts?
Do I believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Oh,
hard questions here. Hard questions. Atheist Junior channel. What is your channel called anyway? Just Atheist
when you say
Junior?
Ghosts, you just mean like the typical apparitions that are haunting the world.
Yeah, like poltergeists, raids, and spirits, as in ghosts. The psychic remnants of dead people, ghosts. Like ghost hunter ghosts.
I would say I've never personally had a compelling enough experience, but I also wouldn't necessarily write it off as impossible.
Okay.
Sunflower, is your name a joke or is that a real thing?
The meat eating vegan thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a jab. I have an ongoing feud with basically all internet vegans. I actually just debated that guy Avi Bitterman last night. Well, I was debating. Yeah, I was debating one of his like underlings, Den Kono or something. Who commented on one of my videos like, "Let's debate." And I'm like, okay. And I went to his Discord, and I guess I'm being a little arrogant here, but I was really obliterating this Den Kono guy. He was shy.
Okay.
He was nervous. He didn't know what he was not experienced at debating. But then it was Avi's Discord channel. So Avi like barges in, then Ask Yourself barges in. Then there's like 90 people in the voice channel. And Avi just tries to derail the conversation with, like whatever. Anyway, the meat eating vegan thing, it comes down to the fact that when I debated vegan gains and Smokey Saint debated Cosmic Skeptic, both of them used the definition for veganism of doing as like little harm as is practical and possible to whatever. Like, so then that in that definition, it doesn't say anywhere that you have to completely abstain from consuming animal products. So there's nothing contradictory about being a meat-eating vegan by that definition.
Okay. Well,
that's a strong thought, Dino. I don't think I can refute that.
Well, my response would be that our society, that most of us eat meat, and the implication there is that for that to happen, you have to have an entire infrastructure where cows are raised, pigs, etc. And a lot. And when you have such a huge country of meat eaters, inevitably you're going to have a situation like we have now, where you have cows or chickens that are kept in small cages, and cows that are led to killing floors and slaughtered and butchered, and there's bad conditions for animals because there's such a huge demand for them. So
I strongly oppose factory farms and inhumane. I strongly oppose that stuff, and I try to buy. I mean, it's not easy, and I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I know for a fact that when I see free range, it means that the animal was just a happy, It's like, look, I don't think that we've tackled that yet, but
right.
for what it's worth, I strongly oppose the inhumane factory farms, and I do what effort I can to at least try to spend extra money if there's anything that leads me to believe the animal had a little bit better condition.
So
right, I agree.
If you are vegan, you are probably morally superior to someone who is not. But the question is it a moral necessity? And I say no, it's not a moral necessity.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be like that. Like, I would totally agree with you that the conditions of some of these farms are just terrible. And, personally, it is something I've struggled with, because I saw a video of a cow being led into one of these rooms, and the cow is visibly trying to walk backwards and escape, and get back in. And it seems scared. Yeah. And in a way, maybe it's a strong word, but the video haunted me,
No, it's heartbreaking. It is.
I do feel like if you were to, time travel, maybe like, I don't know, 200 years into the future, maybe farther than that, I think people are going to look back on our society being not vegan, and they're going to think, wow, I can't believe they were so backwards. And so, it's like how we look on the Middle Ages and stuff now.
See, I disagree with that, though, and here's one of the main reasons I disagree with this. The human species evolved to eat meat and animal products. Like, it was a fundamental part of our evolution.
We are omnivores.
I agree.
We are omnivores. We just are.
Right. So up until literally veganism is so new. It's like the last 100 years. Okay. And here's why I think there's a distinction between the sort of we look back on slavery and we thought, how could we have done that? We look back on the Middle Ages. All of those things, all of those slavery, we didn't evolve to need to have slaves to survive, right? The reprehensible societal things that have taken place, or the wars, or any of this stuff, are completely circumstantial and non-essential to just pure bare bones survival. To be nourished. So there's something more fundamental to our primordial nature about just eating animal products that is not the case for any kind of barbaric warfare or slavery or things like this. Those are specific circumstantial societal outcomes that whereas eating animal products is literally ubiquitous across our entire evolution for however many hundreds of thousands of years. It's kind of inescapable.
I think I would possibly disagree and say that maybe when you say sort of wars and stuff, like tribalism does seem to be something that is sort of inherent in humans.
Sure.
I'm not sure. I suppose I don't, I can't categorically say that's the case, but I can maybe.
Well, tribalism, sure. Well, but like we don't look back on something as general as tribalism and think, how could we have ever been had tribalism in our blood? It's like I'm talking about like slavery, like chattel slavery in the U.S. Like that's not something that the human species just needed to have a situation like that throughout their evolutionary, timeline in order to survive. That that's just like so that's what I mean.
I would say you'd probably agree. Maybe I was wrong in saying that like a huge percentage of the society is going to be vegan, but vegans look at some vegans look at non-vegans right now and they think, how could these people be like that? And certainly you would certainly say that a much larger percentage of people are going to be vegan in the future than, right? Like
more people, yes.
There's going to be more.
I think as soon as technology catches up to actually producing sort of a protein animal substitute that's relatively affordable,
that's a big part.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we get to
the cost,
if we get to a point where it's literally indistinguishable from meat, or they make lab-grown meat, at that point it'll completely radically change things. But as it stands now, I mean, not only are people steeped in their traditions of meat eating, like veganism is largely part of like affluent. It's something that affluent people can do. Like we don't typically, and not in every case, but we don't typically think of the poor Mexican immigrant family coming over and then just like shirking all their family like traditional recipes. Like we're not going to make any of that stuff anymore because we want to think about the animals. It's just not really realistic. Like
right. I live in San Antonio, and I can tell you that like this morning I got for breakfast, I had breakfast tacos, and that is most Mexican dishes are basically the same thing. It's like a tortilla with cheese, meat, vegetables, but the tortilla is simply cooked or made in different ways. But you have I got like a chorizo and egg and bean and cheese and barbacoa, and that's meat.
Making me hungry now.
Sorry. Meat, sausage, and egg, and all of those things are not considered vegan. I apologize for that, but
no,
it is a good reason to live here. That's so fundamental to their cuisine is eggs and meat. So
exactly,
and part of it is because it's so cheap and so easy to make tacos.
But if you're looking into the future, and our arguments are sort of what happens in the future, at a certain point, not having an animal substitute is probably going to be unsustainable. It's just not, we're going to have too much of a population to be able to provide.
Well, but I mean, that's a fair point, but think about this. How much money do people spend on cigarettes and alcohol? It's like those things are not only that they're like suboptimal, they're just like basically poisonous. Well, I don't think alcohol is poisonous, but cigarettes, people that buy like a pack or two a day, if people look at the amount of people that still smoke, and it's like, well, I can guarantee you that however many people are smoking in a population, at least that many or more are going to be continuing to eat meat because it's an indulgence that people are clearly like not really willing to give up just because.
And I guess in the future you'll have the affluent still be able to eat meat, but I mean, the rate of population growth that we're doing at the moment, at a certain point, it has to be that we have to replace meat with something else that's, because the amount of grain it takes to feed these animals to then produce meat.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Impossible Burger, but it's a vegan hamburger that, according to people, is basically indistinguishable or from a real hamburger. Or I imagine that since that it's vegan, that it's really close.
I've heard
I've had it. Did Burger King do it? Your Burger King?
No, that it's something you have to get from, I think, like a website. That was the Impossible Whopper, I think. I think, but yeah.
No, and Burger King did. Well, there's two. There's Beyond Burger and there's Impossible Burger. They're slightly different.
Yeah, Beyond. I think it was Beyond Burger or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Burger King is called Hungry Jack's over here.
Oh, okay.
Well, the Impossible has heme iron in it, which is what it looks like. It bleeds when you cook it. That's so
right. And yeah, lab grown meat is a thing. But as for the argument of judgmental vegans, I don't know if you know, like the channel, The Needle Dropper, Anthony Fantano. He reviews music. I love that channel. I've been watching it for like 10 years, and he's awesome. But he's a vegan, and he's not somebody that has been sort of forcing it on people. But I watched one of his videos where he was wearing a shirt that says "My food doesn't scream," and I was a little bit irritated by that. But
scream.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, they emit a ultrasonic scream when they're pulled from the ground. They do scream. Fun fact, plants actually scream.
Well, you can't hear it, and plants aren't really cute, so.
So if it's ultrasonic and you can't hear it, did the plant scream? This sounds like a philosophical question.
Well, I mean, I've always thought about that question. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And I would say yes, of course it does.
No.
But I mean, it hits the ground, and sound waves come off because of the impact.
Makes sound waves. So what we define as a sound is the receiving of something into an eardrum, because don't forget, a sound is only caused by your eardrum vibrating, right? The sound waves or the vibration waves through the air hitting your eardrum is the sound that you hear.
I see. So I guess if you reworded the question, if it falls in the forest and no one's there, does it make sound waves? And I would say yes, because sound waves are ripples in the air.
Yes. So does it make vibrations in the air?
Yeah.
Yes.
A wave is a wave is just a disturbance in a medium. It could be water or air.
Right. Exactly. But does it make a sound? No, because a sound is the eardrum receiving that vibration.
But what if there are What if there are squirrels that hear it?
Yes, because the squirrels heard it's a sound.
Okay,
I don't know the frequency that squirrels hear stuff on, but I would presume
they would.
So, yeah.
I'm sure they would be able to hear the tree
There's
falling.
No squirrels in Australia.
What do you mean?
Really?
No, they don't exist in the Australian continent.
They don't have flying squirrels. Do they have sugar gliders?
No, there are squirrels around. You see them in New South Wales in parks all the time.
Really?
They're not native to Australia.
Oh, how did they get there then? Someone just threw it across the ocean?
Yeah.
Sometimes people accidentally bring in invasive species like the frogs in Australia.
No. The cane toads, which are incredibly poisonous and destructive, were not accidental. They were introduced intentionally.
Yeah, that was intentional, which was a terrible idea.
Yeah. So they had these cane wasps, which were doing a little bit of damage to the cane field. So they brought in their natural predators, the cane toads. In the most delusional way to handle a problem is introduce another biosecurity risk. And the cane toads have just got out of control.
Have you seen the Simpsons episode about that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's like they have snakes, so they bring in like a bunch of mongooses, and then the mongooses go running around, so they have a bunch of gorillas, and they're like, oh well, the gorillas will just freeze in the winter, Yep. I forget all the different animals, but I forget what we were talking about a second ago. But do you know what a sugar glider is? Have you seen those?
Yeah, sugar gliders.
I used to have one as a pet.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool because you could have him like on like the top of like a door, and he would jump down and he would glide and he would land on my shoulder.
Yeah, with that membrane between their
paws. And they were so soft, and they have these big bushy tails. The only thing that sucked is they have these tiny claws where my hands were always clawed up because they're almost impossible to trim. You have to take them to a specialist vet to get them cut because they're so much finer than like a cat's claws or even like a tiny chihuahua. Like they're so thin. I used to have a lot of exotic pets like chinchillas and stuff, and then some reptiles and snakes and stuff like that.
I have a cat.
Yeah, I don't really like cats because I just feel like I would rather have I'm more of a dog person because I haven't had good experiences with cats. Like, we had to like adopt a cat that belonged to my grandmother or something when I think after she passed, and it was this big like fat cat named Roy, and he was real mean. And I remember one time I was holding him, and I think he was trying to jump out of my arms and get on the bed, and he was like writhing around, and I dropped him, and so he was falling towards the ground, and for stability he dug his claws into my leg, and then the claw, like his claws like dragged down my leg as he was falling, like with his full body weight on him. So I had like these 3 like gash marks in my leg. It really fucking hurt.
You kind of just have to accept scratches with cats.
Yeah, I love both dogs and cats equally, but I totally understand, why some people just aren't really as big of a fan.
I'm good at like training a dog and raising a dog to be really friendly. And even when I've had friends where I've gone over to their houses and I know how to approach a dog that I haven't seen before, and like they would tell me like, oh, that dog barks at everybody else and won't let them touch him, but he likes you. And what the reason I think is because because I used to own a Rottweiler, and I would approach a strange dog by usually I would try to let the dog come to me because they might get scared of you if you approach them. And what I would do is I would put my hand out towards the dog. It sort of shows them that you don't have anything in your hand. And I have my palms out, and I definitely will have my hand to where it's not raised up in above my head, because dogs that have been abused, they'll flinch if you do that and get real scared. And I just sort of let the dog slowly, I'll start to sort of pet it on his head, and then eventually the dog, you'll see them sort of submit and become calm. But people who just try to run, go up to a dog and just start touching it, that's how people get bit. And I can't do that with a cat. I can't, I'm scared of cats who are mean. When a cat is hissing at you and is ready to attack you, that shit scares me. Cats can be really scary.
Really?
Yeah, a rabid cat, a big one who's hissing at you and ready to claw you and bite you. Hell no, I'm staying away from that thing.
Yeah, cats are interesting. You kind of just have to acknowledge their presence and then ignore them while keeping your hand out, and they'll usually get curious and come over and sniff your hand because they're curious about you. But it
takes knack like anything else. I guess you just have more of a intuitive understanding of how to sort of behave with dogs. And so I think I know what you're talking about. I think I grew up with both cats and dogs from a young age, so I feel like I kind of have that for both of them. But if you don't sort of if there's probably tons of animals that I would be scared as hell if I saw them trying to get ready to attack me.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen a cat acting like that, where they're they've got their claws out and they're hissing, and they have the fur standing up on their back, and they have their back arched, and they're ready to they make that aggressive meowing noises. But I had a dog that I rescued because it was this dog had been kind of waiting in the street outside my house for 2 days. I had seen it in the neighborhood, and then on the 3rd day it was raining really hard, and I saw the dog had crawled under a truck to get out of the rain. So I brought it in and gave it some food, and then it sort of just became our dog, because nobody came to claim it. And I think it belonged to my neighbor, but the dog left there because it was being neglected. And the person, I think, knew that we had the dog because they had seen us walking the dog past their house, and just they didn't want it, and you could easily tell that dog had been abused, because like I said, if you I've seen dogs that have been like hit before and beaten, and if you slightly even raise your hand around them, they'll flinch. You know, even if you didn't mean to, like you're not going to hit them. You know, they think they're going to get smacked. And with the rescue dogs, she would do something called demand barking, where she would. She had such good hearing that she would wait around in the other room for me to wake up. And as soon as she could actually hear me shifting around in bed when I would wake up, and she would start barking. And she would bark like every couple of seconds until I came out and like gave her attention, you know, because when a dog is neglected and abused like that, and then they go from that to being, you know, in a house in a stable environment, they sort of become obsessed with their masters. And
makes sense.
Yeah, it's for anybody who's ever had like a rescue dog, like it's nice, but you know, at the same time they can be a handful, you know, because they become so attached to you. And I had a French bulldog also that unfortunately, like, you know, with how hot it gets down here, the dog, because they have those pushed in faces, you know, it just every summer it would struggle to breathe. It would start, you know, it would start wheezing, and we would have to take it to the vet, and we just had to put it down eventually, which sucked because they're so cute, like those French bulldogs, and he was expensive too.
All right, well, I'm gonna take off, guys. It's getting pretty late here, so yeah, good to talk to you all.
What time is it over there?
Take care, Mark.
12:28. So yeah, too late. Should go to bed.
That's interesting because it's like 11:30 a.m. here.
Are you in Pacific Daylight?
Yeah, it's 12 in my area.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it was daylight savings time recently. We like gained, or I don't even remember if we gained or lost an hour. I think it was like earlier. We does anybody remember we like fall back, right, or spring forward?
Well, where do you live? Like roughly? Oh, you used to live in Texas, don't you?
I live in Texas. It's the central time zone.
Yeah. Well, anyway, good conversation, Mark. Look forward to talking again sometime, maybe.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm glad that I could have you come on a stream where you get to talk to Tangelo and have a lot of time on the stream, you know, because I do apologize for what happened with the last stream.
Okay, that's all good. It's all good. I was just I just sort of was a bit shirty, but that's okay. We talked it out. You know, I can see your point of view. Totally understand. I'm glad I talked to you, and
that's how me and Oz. Yeah, because we had a good conversation then. Anyway, we talked for a long time after that. But that's how me and Oz were. You know, and also like you saw how kind of the crazy it gets with having to add people and stuff. And this one, you know, like it can get sort of hectic. And I missed a lot of questions because you know, when I'm having to pay attention to the chat and stuff and add people, I definitely, you know, sometimes I miss what people are saying, you know, so it can be kind of tricky. I think that's why Amy is a co-host, you know, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me. You two guys take care, and good to talk to you.
Yeah. See you later.
See you.
There.
Yeah, Dino, if you watch at the beginning of this video, because I'm going to end the stream pretty soon, when the video's up, you can see that I talked to Mr. Batman, and it went pretty good at first, but then, you know, he did the same thing that Darth Dawkins did to me. He would ask me a question, and then right in the middle of it, he just blatantly cuts me off. And then he gets pissed off at me saying I didn't answer the question. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I'll keep that in mind once you do end this.
Hey, Ryan. Ryan is here in the chat.
Well, sorry to mention this, but the stream's gonna end, dude.
Yeah, well, he's been wanting me to talk to Mr. Batman for a while, so I guess your dreams have come true, Ryan. That guy's kind of a dick, though, which I already knew, but
I like waking up early Saturday, maybe coffee. Then I like to play music. I'm actually a songwriter.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm a lyricist and a rapper.
I write original songs.
Yeah. Do you write lyrics?
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Well, I guess, does songwriting mean you write the sort of sheet music and the lyrics, or is it?
Yeah, so I write essentially the whole thing. I don't use sheet music. I just play a guitar or piano. I arrange the sort of the music, and then I write a vocal melody, and then I write the lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah, writing lyrics is fun, but it can be kind of hard. But
Definitely, not many people have the ability to do it.
Yeah, because it's a lot more than just rhyming, words. You have to take into account like the number of syllables and the vocal melody and the cadence. Like, it can be really time consuming, especially like having to like set it to music too. And do you have an app you use? Like, do you use
no, I don't.
A DAW?
Well, I do. I have what's called Reaper, but I don't. That's my biggest flaw. Like, I never record. I I like to write music and play my songs, but I'm bad at like buckling down and like, making a multi-track recording. It's just so daunting to me to like have to do all the technical aspect of audio. I'm more like I like the performance aspect. I've been meaning to think about like trying to maybe go to a small studio, but like it's not only extremely expensive, it's like I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to like, sing emotional songs in front of a stranger. So maybe one day, but right now, I don't know. I just sort of play in my room.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to just simply get like, if you have like an audio recording app, or just record something, and you might not even really like it or think that it's working in the minute, but if you keep doing that, eventually you'll kind of forget about some of these recordings, and you'll come back to them a long time later, and you'll be glad that you recorded it.
Oh, for sure. Like, I have voice memos on my iPhone. That's how I usually will like just save an idea. Like, I'll just click the record button on my iPhone. There's something called voice memos, and that just sort of saves a little audio bite. So I'll do that, but I mean like official recording where like I'm setting up the mic and like, using compression and reverb, and then like, putting different tracks together. That kind of thing. I never have the energy to do that.
Yeah, well, it's a totally different mindset. There's a big difference in the mindsets of being creative and coming up with ideas, and then a different mindset is actually being in performance mode, and then it's a completely different mindset to be in the editing mode and deciding, okay, what's good and what sucks,
Exactly.
What should I change. You have to be in a totally different space to do that.
That is 100% exactly what I feel. It's like I have to go from emotional performance and then do a 180 in my office chair and become like a dry, cold, analytic sound technician. And that's to me, that's just so, it's difficult and it's nerve wracking. So
Well, that's why I said earlier how my favorite band is Nine Inch Nails, and it used to be that Trent Reznor is basically Nine Inch Nails. He's like the entire band. Of course, he has a live band that he plays with. He's changed the members of the live band a ton of times, but now it wasn't until like 2016 that he officially added a second member to Nine Inch Nails, which is Atticus Ross. And I listened to an interview with him, and I'll send you a link to it because it's a really good interview. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Song Exploder podcast, but Song Exploder is where they get an artist to come on and do an interview, and they take one of their songs and they break it down, showing like how the song was written and showing the multi-tracks of it, showing like the lyrics by themselves or the instrumentation by itself stripped back. They take it and they break the song apart and show you how it was created and talk about the creative process. And in that interview, he talks about how like when he was making that song, when he is in that mode where he's singing like an emotional part of the song, and it helped him a lot to be able to kind of do that and then go and get some like fresh air while Atticus is in the studio sort of doing that other part of it, the editing, and then he can come back. And having the second person to do that really like made things a lot easier for him. And I think kind of
I feel like, that if I had something like that, I would. Man, that sounds really helpful. Yeah, I could totally see that.
Yeah, having to have all those skills is difficult, but I'm gonna paste the link real quick, and then so you can grab that. But then I'm probably gonna call it quits after that. But
all right, cool.
There are a bunch of other episodes on there of different bands. Like there's an MGMT episode where they do Electric Feel. That was really cool, getting to hear all the different parts of that song isolated. They have a ton of artists like Weezer and let's see. Probably, I'm sure some artists that you like, although you didn't want to give up your identity and expose what artists you like. Dino King, do you have a favorite band or artist?
Well, I got plenty of bands that I really like. Let's see. There's a Starset. There's Skillet.
Skillet. And they're a Christian band? Isn't that Christian rock?
I'm mostly into rock.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That sounds cool. Hey, feel free to say no. Maybe I could just play you a 30-second part of one of my original songs.
Yeah, I don't care. Go ahead.
Okay, cool.
And I put that link in the chat. So.
Will I eat the same thing every week? 'Cause I'm living for free down here. And I'm stuck and I'm running out of luck. I've been living like a thug. That's all I'm going to play. Thanks, though.
I like that. You know what? I don't know if you've heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but their guitarist John Frusciante has some solo material, and it reminded me of that a little bit.
Thank you. That's a huge compliment because I love his solo stuff.
Yeah, some of it's real weird, but some of it is amazing, like the Empyrean. And one of my favorite songs of his like that is called "Song to Sing When I'm Lonely."
I think is that from, I know that Neandra Lades and Usually Just a T-Shirt is one of those weird albums. And then there's another one, I think it was called Smile from the Streets You Hold, which I actually had a CD of. I love that stuff because he's one of my biggest inspirations, actually, his solo stuff. So yeah, that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm glad you like it. I think the album is called Other Songs, or no, it's called Carvel. That's the name of the album that song is on. But you've heard that song before?
That one actually doesn't sound familiar, but I'll look it up.
That's the name of the album that the song is on that I was talking about.
Carvel.
Yeah, and Song to Sing When I'm Lonely. You've heard that song?
I think so, but not recently, but it sounds familiar.
All right. Well, yeah, say check that out, and then I put that link to the other podcasts in there. So, but no, I appreciate it. I think it's a good way to end the broadcast. So I'm going to say peace out. And if you guys want to say something real quick before I end it, you can.
Yeah, no, I'm going to check out that podcast and that song. Hey, man, just thanks so much for the great conversation. Really enjoyed it. As I admit that I do I've said some bad things and I try to get better. I'm not perfect, but I ultimately take responsibility for the bad stuff I've said and done. And I hope I can get better and be a better person. So thanks for having me. I really had a fun time.
Yeah. I'm always, for the most part, always willing to, give people another chance. If I maybe get off on the wrong foot with somebody, I'm willing to talk about it with them. But of course, in the case of some people, if I talk about it with them and they still basically say like, yeah, I'm going to be an asshole, then it's like, well, okay, then you've decided. But Okay, Dino King, are you good or?
Yeah, I'm gonna go later, AJ. Nice talking
All
to
right.
you.
All right. See you later. Thank to chat. See you later. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Atheist Junior, aka Young Hoven, aka Young Kent, Stack Money to the Ceiling, aka AJ, aka On the Way to Fuck You Bitch.